that mean yes? Almost. Okay, I see that thumbs up. I'm looking for the thumbs up. Thank you. Well, good evening. Thank you for joining us at the Nampa City Council member meeting. And I just want to say welcome to those that are online and thank you for those that are in the audience this evening. So as we get started, we have a tradition here, and that is that we open in prayer. And I so appreciate Pastor Craig Hansen coming as a regular to open us in prayer. So thank you. We'll let you start and then lead us in the pledge.
And please stand. And then as usual, I just have a short scripture.
That's great.
I've never gone more than 4 minutes here. I have actually kept track. So just to start with that, in Psalms 34, it says, I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall make its boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear of it and be glad. Oh, magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. And then moving over to verse 3. It says, excuse me. Well, we'll just skip that one because I lost my place. That's terrible when I do that, but that's all right. I'm 62 now. It's okay.
It happens to all of us.
Anyway, I just wanted to make sure that we honor God for this meeting and the opportunity to take care of business here on earth that he's given us to do, and especially praying for your budget hearing tonight. And I know that's a major concern. Anytime you start talking about dollars, people start perking their ears up and listening. So we're going to pray for that. But let's go to the Lord. Dear Lord Jesus, we thank you so much for this beautiful day. We thank you, Lord, to be able to come and carry out your business. Thank you for the honor of praying before you, giving you honor and glory. May our hearts and our minds and our souls be humbled before you. And I pray that you will lead each individual that sits upon this council, the finance officers, the clerk, every other individual that's representative of the city that's here today. And God, that includes the citizenry behind me. Lord, I pray that you will give them good words to speak and concerns to voice, dear Lord God, if they have them. And Lord, may they do it with tact, may they do it with honor, may they do it with dignity, and may they do it knowing that we are all citizens of this city and that we desire the best for everyone who lives here. We just give you the glory now in Jesus' name. Amen. Let's say the pledge together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. God bless you all.
Craig. Appreciate you. Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Bruner.
Here.
Ingula.
Here.
Reynolds. Here. Haverfield.
Here.
Bauer. Here. All present.
As we get started, I do want to mention, so there is a monitor here in front of us, and this is a test tonight. So if someone says, I don't like it, it's really interesting to see who we can see versus can't see and what you can see. So it's kind of big, but we were trying to figure out how council, it's easier to see something in front of us than trying to see it at an angle on the side. And so if anybody has any comments on it, please let us know. Council, it's our opportunity to say, do we like it, do we not like it? We also are looking at something that actually helps time our public hearings so that they can see the time rather than just us, and that shows who's up next to speak. And so we're going to figure out where those monitors go. And then lastly, just a reminder for all of us, council, to lean into our mics tonight. Yeah.
Talking about me.
Only when we speak so that we can be heard online, so, and for the record, so.
Here are some things I don't want heard.
Sorry, you're not going to get away with that one. Yeah, I know you're kidding. Okay, with that, I am not aware of any proposed amendments to the agenda, other than we do have one public hearing that is going to be continued to the next public hearing date, which is 7/1, and it will be continued to September 19th. Other than that, are there any other proposed amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, I would stand for a motion to approve the consent agenda as proposed.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Bruner.
Yes.
Ingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
The next item on the agenda is our public forum, and this is an opportunity for citizens who wish to speak on an agenda or non-agenda item to speak for 3 minutes. And so who do we have signed up tonight?
Madam Mayor, we have Christian Case who would like to speak on a non-agenda item.
Good evening, Christian. Thank you for sharing your name and address again, even though we've already said it. And then what you're going to share with us.
Mayor Kling and members of the council. My name is Christian Case, and I live at 435 Arrowhead Drive, Nampa. The latest medical scare now appears to be monkeypox. Monkeypox states of emergency have now been declared for the U.S. as well as New York, California, and Illinois. Monkeypox is a male-to-male sexually transmitted disease. I'm not sure whether we will be mandated to wear masks or scared into vaccinations. We know the masks are mainly to protect those who wear them, so mandating masks makes no sense. Vaccinations for everyone for a homosexual STD makes no sense, but these people are pretty good at that, so I expect that we're going to hear something about it soon, and it's nice to be forewarned. So I hope that you will protect our lives and our constitutional liberties if this comes up. So the newest issue I'm hearing about the jabs is called sudden adult death syndrome. It hasn't been linked to vaccines yet, but adult deaths are way up over last year, and the jab is the most likely culprit. Thanks for listening. God bless you.
No, Madam Mayor.
Hi, Mayor and Council. I'll lean into the mic, but I don't have to have a big mouth. Margie Potter, 1811 North Cobble Way. I'm glad you have the monitors here. It is a different perspective. I'm curious if you would also consider possibly electronic voting for the council. I don't know if that's something you've considered. It seems more fair that everybody votes at one time, and if somebody's in the dissent, would not be embarrassed to vote that way because of what everybody else has already voted. So just like you to consider that as a council.
Marjorie, thank you. Had not thought of that. I don't know that we have the technology, but we will look at it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else that had intended to speak this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on. And we don't have any proclamations tonight, and we don't have any agency or commission reports tonight, but we do have 3 staff communications. And the first one is going to be our update and presentation on the Parks and Rec, if I can talk, master plan. Hi, Darren.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Darren Johnson, Parks and Recreation Director, for the record. This week is just a great week for planning Parks and Recreation. As you know, we hired Barry Dunn, a consultant, to come in and help us with our plan. They've done such great work around the country, and so we're really excited to start working on this plan and complete it and learn about our strengths and learn about the things that we can do better in Parks and Recreation. And so at this time, I'd like to introduce Art Thatcher. He's here with his colleague, James Mickle. And so Art has a short presentation to give about our plans for this master plan.
Great. Thank you, Darren. And welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Darren. And Mayor, members of council, thank you very much for the opportunity to come speak to you briefly this evening. James is going to do my slides for me, so can you go next slide? Mm-hmm. Okay. So what I want to talk about is the kind of our strategic planning process and what we're going to be going through, updating your Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So we use this 4-step approach to our master planning process. We've already done the strategic kickoff meeting. We did that via Zoom several weeks ago. And so we're here this week to do focus groups, stakeholder meetings. We've got interviews with the members of council. We got interviews with some of the administration. And then this afternoon, we did a SWAT meeting with the staff and some of the other department staff. And so we're really kind of getting into the beginning of our information gathering process. And so we'll be doing that. This evening, I have 2 of our other staff members are flying in, and tomorrow and Wednesday, they'll be going around to all of your parks and all of your facilities, and they'll be GISing all of those. They'll be doing an inventory of the park as well as of your amenities within those parks. And what we do is we not only do the inventory, but we also do a rating scale on those. We do a quantitative scale on those. And so we do a three-part piece. And so if it's rated as a 1, it means that it's not functioning the way it was designed to function. And so may need a major repair or may need to be replaced. 2 is that it's functioning the way that it was designed, may just need some TLC. And then a 3 is that it's functioning above. So it may be a brand new piece of playground equipment that you put in, a brand new picnic shelter. And so what it allows us to do is when we produce our atlas of all of your facilities, we can pull off all of those 1s, and it really starts you in that equipment replacement process. And we can provide some capital dollars to go along with that. So that's all part of the kind of that process. What we'll use the information we gathered this week from is we'll develop a custom mailed survey, a statistically valid mailed survey that we'll mail out to the community. We'll provide it in a paper copy, but we'll also have a one-time use password to a link that you can take the survey. And then after we've started getting responses back from the survey, we take that same link and we open it up to anybody in the community. We keep the 2 URLs separate so we can preserve the statistic validity, and then we can get a deeper dive from the community so more people can participate in the survey. So once we've gathered all of that data, we will come back and we do what we call our findings presentation, our meeting. And so we look at how we synthesize all of that data, because we know with the focus groups, some things are going to rise as priorities because typically they're users. With the survey, we also reach those non-users. And so we look at how those priorities meld together so that we're not just reacting to a single user group, coming in and asking for something. So we're able to use those multiple data points to make our decisions. So we'll do our findings and visioning. We'll meet with the staff to talk about how we approach some of those issues and activities that we find. Then we'll begin to develop our recommendations, come back, have another meeting around those, and kind of look at action steps to incorporate those. And then we'll begin to develop our final plan. So we're looking at about an 8-month process, and we'll be here on site, meeting with the community, meeting with staff at least 4 more times during that process. And so anytime that we're back in town, we'll, if it's appropriate, we'll try and schedule that so we can give you updates as well at your meetings. Next slide. So as I mentioned, kind of this information gathering is the largest part, and we'll be doing stakeholder interviews, as I mentioned, with the executive leadership, city council, department leadership, and the school district. We're also doing these focus groups. We've got 3 focus groups planned for our time here. So we'll be meeting with community leaders, as well as civic groups and your sports groups. And then, as I said, we did the SWAT this afternoon. Next slide, James. And so, again, we use this mixed method that I talked about earlier, and kind of looking at not only the focus groups and the survey, but also doing individual interviews, looking at and meeting with individual groups. We try and see if we can find time to meet with a group of teens so that we can get a youth perspective, with seniors so we can get a senior perspective. So we really do get a mixed group of information from the process. And so the next slide. So I'll kind of finish with, so you can kind of be thinking of this when we have our interviews and we talk. A couple of the things that we're going to ask you about to help us is, what are some of the key issues and values in the community that we need to be aware of as we're developing this master plan? And then also, what are some outcomes that you would like to see through the master planning process? And then finally, what would you see as priorities for the Parks and Rec Department over the next 5 years as we do this master plan? Typically, the master plan is a 10-year plan, and really the horizon is that first 5 years. And then you kind of start thinking about kind of updating those plans. And so these are some of the things we'll talk about. And so that's kind of my presentation, my short briefing. If you have any comments or anything that you'd like to, any questions I can answer, I'd be happy to do so. Can you go to the last slide, James?
So I think that you have appointments scheduled with each of the council members. Council members, do you have an appointment on your calendar?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not yet. Okay, so we're missing a couple.
Darrell, you have one.
I do?
Has one. I think it went out to everybody, but
But
So
I
we
did
have a-
say yes.
yeah.
Okay,
I'll have to check and see when that yes is.
And if you do not have an appointment, and we can do that over the next 2 days. If not, I'll make myself available when it's convenient for you, and we can do a Zoom interview, a Zoom meeting as well.
that's great. So Amy or Rick, let's make sure, I don't see Rick, maybe he's in plain sight, but touch bases with Carrie, and we need to make sure that
Remind me.
you each have an appointment on the calendar, and I know I have one tomorrow. And so a question that I have for you is, how do we manage we have a requirement for open green space, and some subdivisions have nice open green space with playgrounds and stuff. So how is that taken into consideration when we look at our ratios of park space in a community?
So one of the things that we do kind of as we're doing our inventory and our level of service analysis is we don't just look at a park as a dot on the map. We do what's called a component-based inventory, because we know from experience and from our work that you can have two 10-acre parks, and one may just be a plain open green space that may have a backstop on it and maybe a picnic shelter. And then you have another 10-acre park that has a baseball field and a soccer field and maybe outdoor basketball courts, restrooms, the picnic shelter, and a perimeter walking trail. In the acres per thousand, or they're the same. They're typically measured as the same. But in our component-based, the one with 9 components is rated much higher than the one with 2 components. And so we kind of look at those, and we can inventory those parks and rate those parks. And then we'll take those parks and we compare them to the Esri, your population data through Esri and through those census tracts. So we can see where those 10-acre parks are with 9 facilities, and where those 10-acre parks are with 2 facilities, and what the population is like around those. And so as we begin to do our recommendations, we begin to look at how can we upgrade your existing parks so that they are more functional and provide, greater assets to the community. And then, is there a need maybe just for some cleanup within those other parks? So that's kind of how we approach that piece.
So Mayor, may I just ask further clarification? So are you inventorying and literally taking a look at pocket parks and subdivisions? Or are you just looking at our large parks and paths?
We're looking at your parks and paths. We're looking at the schools.
Okay, so you're not looking at subdivision pocket parks?
Typically, we do not, because in a lot of cases, we don't have access to those. We will work with your GIS folks. And so what we can do is we can find where those parks are. We can do a Google map of them, and we can look at what amenities are provided in those and what the acreage is, and can inventory those as other service providers. So what we would not want to do is see a development that has a a 3-acre park in it as a community park, as an HOA park, and recommend that, or say that there's no service there, because there is. It's just not, it's for that neighborhood.
Thank you, because
So
I
yes,
think
we
that's
do.
important, and that
I
was my
think
question.
that needs to be
Yeah.
accounted for and makes a big difference in what amenities we put in our large parks.
Yes, absolutely, I agree.
Thanks.
So Darren, I think we've got our parks and our GIS maps, I would think. Do we? Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we will provide them with the GIS mapping of the parks and the amenities that are in there.
Yes,
Okay.
you have already
Perfect.
provided those for us.
Good.
And so what we'll do is we'll drop in amenities where they may be missing, and we'll do, just a kind of a cleanup of what your current data is, since we'll be boots on the ground in every park.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Council, do you have any questions? Other questions?
Mayor, just one more. So it sounds like down the line, you're going to keep us abreast of what's going on. So I think I saw there was going to be a summary of these focus groups or something here at City Hall. Is that advantageous for any of us to be there for that? Or is that something when in our individual interviews and so on, you'll cover all that?
I won't cover all of that because we won't have all of that information yet. So you're welcome to attend, or we will, I will have a PowerPoint presentation with a summary of everything that we've heard and what I'm going to present on Wednesday evening. And we'll provide that to the city so that you can get a copy of it.
So
and
we'll
then-
have that.
Yeah, and then also you can put it on your website for the rest of the community to see.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so Wednesday night, and Darren, I'll let you share with us. Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you all
Great
very
job.
much. I appreciate it. Look
Thank
forward to
you.
working with you.
And Council, Carrie Seeley should have sent you an email and to sign up. And so I think she sent that out a couple times. There are a few slots still open tomorrow. And so if you can contact Carrie, that'd be great.
And then the public forum that's coming out, can you give us the time and date, the location of that?
Yes, so we have focus groups, and then the public forum is Wednesday, I think 5:30 to 7 here on
Here in
Wednesday.
City Council? Okay, so
Yes.
Wednesday evening. Okay,
Yes,
great, thank you.
and I can send that out to the city council too.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so Public Works, staff report. Thank you, Darren. Good evening, Tom.
Evening, Mayor and Council. So a couple items on the staff report. You've got our monthly wastewater treatment plant update about the construction. There's lots of concrete being poured right now. Things are on track and on budget. We spent about $40 million so far. So but things are going well out there. And we also have a little bit of information about the treatment and the way the water is treated from the inflow to the outflow, so you can look at that. That's in your packet. Okay, and next, we've got some exciting news in Public Works. We're fully staffed in our leadership team. So we've got our new employee starting today, Crystal Craig, and we're super glad to have her on board. She's taken the transportation director position, and she has 13 years experience at ITD, working on a number of programs, and she was also working on the TECM program, which is, if you remember, she came and talked to us about State Highway 55, and that was one of the projects. And she's got a degree in civil engineering from BSU, and so we're super glad to have her as part of our team. So, I don't know, you want to come up and say anything, Crystal? Okay.
She's not bashful, by the way.
I'm not, thank you. Mayor, council members, I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you guys so much. I'm really, really excited to join the team. Tom has built such a strong group of people that are innovation focused and are really capitalizing on all of the expansion that's happening and the growth that's happening in Nampa. So just, heartfelt honor right here to serve along you guys, and I hope to do you proud.
Crystal, thank you. We're glad to have you. Welcome.
I'll be brief on this last part here. So the transportation director role is not exactly the same as what council will remember when Jeff had it. That's because we brought in Mark Stoyer, and some of those duties went over to Mark. So I wanted to, it's in, I'm not going to go through every line item here, but it's in your packet on some of the programs that we're running. So if you have a question about a various program, you'll know who to contact. Just a quick summary. So if it's a drought task force item, you would contact me. Legislative items, contact me. Transportation funding plan. And then Crystal, she'll be managing the operations end of the fleet, streets, and airport, and the corridor plan. Matt Rick works for her, and she'll be overseeing the ITS program. She's also going to be the liaison for all the highway districts, Canyon Highway District 4, Nampa Highway District, ITD, and ACHD. Vegetation control, roundabout design, street impact fee, and safe routes to school, transportation master plan. And she'll also be, the way we have it set up is she'll be managing the project management on some of our large construction projects, like when State Highway 16 South or 45 goes to construction, she would oversee that. Daniel would oversee design and construction of some of the smaller projects, intersections. So that's how we're gonna break those down. And of course, Jeff, he's got the water group now. And then Mark, he's over strategic initiatives, so strategic planning. He's also got Heather that works for him doing the budget. And then the grants, which is a new infrastructure job program. He also has pavement management. And part of his role is to look for funding for these projects, but also get them prepped and ready, so get the environmental done and everything ready to go, so it can be kicked over for Daniel and Crystal to work on the project management of the construction. And then, of course, Daniel Badger, city engineer, so he's questions about development, capital improvement, construction and design, traffic impact studies in the FEMA floodplain. So it's kind of a quick rundown.
Mayor, just a quick question, Tom. I know I got to get a little snarly here. Krista, do you like roundabouts?
Oh. Here we go. Mary Clay.
Wise woman, she was quiet.
She must be going to run for office.
She smiled, though.
Yes, Victor.
I will say that Tom and I have been attending the Nampa Highway District meetings, and we see a good direction between us and the Nampa Highway District, and Tom's been meeting with them about some of the issues we've been having, and I think we're going in a positive direction. We'll be sending you out a proposed budget that has it been approved yet?
Yeah, they did approve it.
Okay,
Councilor,
okay, we'll send you, all the council and the mayor, a copy of that budget that they have for this year. And it's pretty amazing. You'll take a look at it and go, wow. So, but that's ongoing, and so I think we're going down the right direction, Mayor.
Great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Anything else for Tom?
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
Tom, thank you very much. Okay, and our last staff communications is our Building and Safety Facilities Staff Report, and this is, I think, pretty much focused on energy code, maybe? Yes, with Patrick.
So, Mayor and Council, good evening. I'll give you a little bit of background to this. I'm involved in working with Idaho State Building Code Board, and I'm also currently the president of the local chapter of building officials, which is building professionals of Southwest Idaho. So anyway, there's a hearing tomorrow for amending building code rules, and part of the zero-based regulation executive order that the governor has put out, the Idaho Building Code Board has until 2026 to revise their rules, and the process is basically sunsetting all the rules and just bringing back exactly what they feel we need for rules. With this, the current proposed rules are taking out major portions of the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing portions of the Energy Code. And for reference, in 2008, the National Energy Code was adopted as the Idaho Energy Code in the state. And the Energy Code is a umbrella code that coordinates all of this building systems, from building envelope, how tight it is, to sizing the HVAC or the mechanical equipment for heating and cooling, and then also for lighting control, which is more of a metric for cost savings, but and so is the insulation for plumbing lines, although that does also play into efficiency. The biggest thing in the letter and the matrix of items that I would like to be able to testify tomorrow at the Building Code Board to keep are the ones that ensure that the mechanical systems are sized correctly, so we don't miss the boat, and we're keeping the portions of the energy code that make buildings very tight, airtight. But what that does is it traps moisture in the buildings from mostly occupants and processes within the buildings. Case in point, if we ended up getting rid of the residential portion of the HVAC provisions of the energy code, what would happen is that we would no longer require sizing the, appropriately sizing the HVAC and equipment, the furnace and the air conditioning coils, and the ductwork. And we would no longer inspect that other than, do you have a furnace? Turn it on, does it work? And I think that steps over the bounds of leaving on the table the health and welfare of the occupants, because when the building codes were adopted originally in Idaho, and the energy code was adopted as well, the legislative intent was to promote the health, life, safety, and welfare of the occupants and of buildings in Idaho. So I'll stand for any questions on what I have. I can bore you to death on this stuff if you'd like. But what I'd like to do is just ask you to trust me in taking a common sense approach with my comments and retaining the items, or recommending to the Idaho Building Code Board that we retain the items that ensure that our residential and commercial buildings are built to a standard where we know what all the systems are doing with each other. Because over the years, the mechanical code used to have a lot of the sizing of HVAC in there. They've pulled all that out and put in the energy code. And so we're relying on that overarching code for how we size things. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions you might have.
Just a couple of quick questions. The reason to relax the energy codes at the state level, have they given any reason for that?
Mayor and Councilman Haverfield, yes, they have. Instead of the Building Code Board generating or directing DOPL staff to amend the codes in a certain way, DOPL staff has proposed that they feel that even though the energy code was adopted in the legislature for the Building Code Board to manage, they're saying that they can't manage the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing codes. Those should actually be under the other boards. And that stems from the predicament that Division of Building and Safety has, is because mostly they do mechanical, electrical, and plumbing in areas where they have a building code managed by a county or a small jurisdiction that does the rest of the code, including the energy code. And I think a lot of it is because they just don't want to deal with it. And the other thing is, I think that they're looking for places to cut significant language out of the rules, and this would cut significant language out of the rules.
So we're talking about commercial and multifamily residential, but not residential, single family.
Mayor and Councilman Haverfield would be for residential, single family, and duplex, and then it would also be for multifamily and all types of commercial.
So the res check and the com check process would still be intact?
No, because those are regulated out of the energy code portions, or the HVAC part of the energy code. They aren't. It used to be in the mechanical code. When they brought in the energy codes, they put all of those metrics on how to size things using commercial, com check for commercial and res check for residential. They put all of those parameters in the energy code. And that's the unintended consequences of just cutting it, saying, well, in the future, we're going to try and bring it back. And I just don't think there will be political will at the legislature to try and, after you've gotten rid of something, to try and bring it back, because I've been involved in basically trying to save portions of just the regular residential code throughout the years as well.
So is there pushback at the residential level or the commercial and residential as well?
The pushback is mostly from designers, building officials, people that actually put in the heating systems, the contractors that do that. The Home Builders Association has taken a neutral position. And then we've also networked with some lenders because there are some ramifications on what energy code you need to be on, which I think it's 2009, in order to make sure that the government or the federal government can subsidize or have actually HUD-sponsored loans like FHA loans, things like that.
So my last question then, is this will eventually there'll be a switch to 2000 and what is the next code that they're looking at adopting? We're still on 18 in Idaho. I know other states are on 20 at this point.
Mayor and Councilman Haverfield, we're currently on 18. We had a 2-year code collaborative in 19 and 20, adopted in 21. It's looking, even though it's not mandated in legislature, I think we'll be going, like a lot of states, to a 6-year instead of a 3-year, even though most of the code books are updated on a 3-year
So
process.
24?
We're probably looking at going to the 24, and we would likely go to that in, say, 26, 27.
So whether the state adopts the energy code or not would be the question that's still in play at this point.
Correct. Whether or not they re-adopt only the envelope portions, basically moisture barriers, R values and R values for envelopes and U values for fenestration.
Thank you.
Because they're not wanting to get rid of that, but it's all of the other things that tie into that and the other codes that we'd like to keep.
Thank you, Patrick.
Okay.
News article, and it showed that, yeah. Thank you. So am I working now? I'm kind of going in and out, so I'm not sure what's happening. But so Patrick, there was a recent article in the newspaper that showed that Boise and Nampa were it appeared to be, and maybe Ammon, the only cities that were opposed. Meridian was either silent or supporting these changes. Can you help me understand why the differing opinion, especially between us and, let's say, Meridian?
Mayor, I can. All of the building code officials in the state are members of IDAPA, Idaho. I can't remember the acronym right now, but anyway, it's the Idaho Building Officials Association, and all of the board members of that board are basically in line with what I'm saying. And so is Boise, and so am I. Meridian does not have a building official currently. Their current building official actually left to go work for Doppel as the head of their building department because that building department or that building official had retired. So they have a vacancy in their building official. The people from Meridian who were very vocal about it are 2 mechanical plans examiners who actually were hired from the state to Meridian and used to work for the gentleman that's heading this up. So, and their background is residential HVAC plans examiners and residential HVAC installers. So they were speaking really individually. They were not holding an office or holding any type of management role in Meridian.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was just, when you have the visual, it makes you wonder that question. So the reason I asked Patrick to come tonight and share this is that there is a board meeting tomorrow. He has testified to share his opinion, and it is representing, as much as he can wear his other hat, he's representing the city of Nampa. And so I just wanted to make sure that council was aware that at some point he will bring the actual document to us and we can choose. But tonight it's just the general information.
This is the document in the packet.
Okay.
Is
Is there going to be a different document? Okay, that was the final for you.
There's the final
Okay.
document.
Okay, I wasn't sure if
Since
this
we
was
had the
final.
deadline, I just
You
powered
did
through,
the
got
all-nighter to
it
get it done. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
I would just state to Patrick that I appreciate and trust you, but there's a trust and verify approach that we take. And I think you're representing your department, but as far as representing the city council at this point, it's too new. This topic even hasn't hit my desk yet at the office. So I'm not sure of all the full ramifications. I know California has Title 24 reports that have to be done for energy. It all kind of comes in play with creating an envelope for the building that's tight, properly heated and air conditioned and all of that. I think the issue that I've heard as far as locally is the energy, the amount of energy that's allocated to a building and the restriction on how much can be allocated to that building. So when you have someone that wants to have an enhanced amount of energy potential, for whatever reason, they're not allowed to by the current codes. So I think that's what somewhat of the pushback is, what I've heard. But I don't know enough at this point for you to represent me or my thoughts on it as a council person. But I think you need to have, I guess, our trust behind you. You have that. But I still would like to know more about the topic before you say that you're representing the city council, at least one member of the city council.
Okay.
So you're speaking based on your professional opinion?
I
You
can.
can certainly do that. Is that what I'm hearing? You can speak based on your professional opinion and representing the organizations as a president of the local. And then saying, you know what, our council has not formally chosen to support this because they feel like there's more information. And so that will come at a later time that we'll have the discussion, but you can speak on your behalf, as long as just state that and you're good.
Okay. So, Mayor and Council, what I'll do is I'll probably put the body of this letter on another letterhead then, because I need to have some type of written backup to my testimony. So is it okay to, as you said, I'll go and I'll just represent as my professional opinion? That said, the way this is going, we're going to have a September board meeting and a November board meeting, and that's done. So if we do want to if the council does want to take a stance on this, we would need to have a stance at the next September meeting in order to put some written response in. And I think that would carry a lot of weight. That said, I do know that being the director of building safety, that if they do pull this out, the provisions are going to be taken out of the energy code. It will lighten our load as far as plan review, but what we'll also do is it will, right now we do about 15% of all inspections, get a correction out in the field. That might go down just a little bit with this. But what it also means is that we will not be verifying other than is there ductwork. We don't care what size it is. Is there a furnace? We don't care if it's sized correctly. Has it been tested, balanced? I don't know. So that's the types of things that are unintended consequences that I'd be happy to bring this to another discussion, like on a Thursday workshop, so we could really dive a little deeper, because I feel really passionate about this, and I think that it will be a missed opportunity if we let these provisions go, because what it'll do is it'll actually make the mayor's office a lot more busy, because people will be complaining that their houses aren't comfortable and they're not balanced and things like that, just at a residential level. So.
Are we good? So I think, do you understand how to represent, and you can change your letterhead and
Yes.
represent it that way? And then the next council workshop, I believe, is September 21st. We have one this Thursday, but we did not have space in this one. Wednesday, I'm sorry, it is Wednesday, but we didn't have room on the agenda. So it would be September 21st is the next workshop.
Okay.
Or you can bring it to the September 6th council meeting.
I'm out then. I could do the 19th or the 21st.
Okay, 21st then, let's do a workshop.
Okay.
Okay.
Right on.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Okay, that concludes our staff communications. We're going to move on to our new business, and the first item is 6.1. This is an action item, and this is to authorize the mayor to sign the letter of support for Compass's Safety Action Plan application and partner with Compass and local jurisdictional representatives as joint applicants in the development of the Safety Action Plan. So this was continued from our August 1st meeting to tonight because of some questions. And so I'd like to ask, first and foremost, Mark, I have your name down on this one. Would you like to make some comments as we get started? Thank you, Mark.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Mark Stoyer, Director of Strategic Initiatives. Kind of an overall theme and one of the many benefits of the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the various transportation grant program is by default a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, specifically to the Safe Streets for All program and the subject traffic safety action plan. Things like improved connectivity and enhancing traffic circulation through the valley, undoubtedly, by default, it's intrinsic to the program, will reduce greenhouse gas emissions. However, this does not mandate or obligate the city in any way to carbon reduction standards, regulations, and/or mandates. If you have any more detailed questions, Compass, who's taken the lead in this program grant application, Matt and Tony are also here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any questions this evening? And Matt, thank you so much. I appreciate the work that you do on our behalf with Compass. And I think, have you all met Matt Stoll? Thank you. Thank you for your work. We appreciate you and all the work that you do. So are there any questions this evening on this particular issue? What is the will of the council?
Mayor, I do really quick, sorry. So on the SS4A grant, does that include all three of those grants? The action plan grant, the supplemental, and the implementation grant?
No, so this is a regional grant application by Compass. It's a planning grant to conduct the traffic safety action plan, and will include Compass and participating agencies, and when City of Nampa is one of them. I think there's 4 or 5 participating agencies. Matt, do you want to say anything else?
You're not that old, Matt.
Sadly, I am. Mayor, City Council, Matt Stahl, Executive Director of Compass. Just to clarify, on the 3 grant applications that you're asking about, for you to proceed, for anybody to proceed and pursue an implementation grant, you have to complete a safety grant plan. So that has to be done first, and that's what we're trying to get for the region as a whole. And that avails you to $1 billion per year that will be available competitively across the nation to deal with the safety issues. The second one, that's kind of a phase between the safety grant safety plan and the implementation one, is if you had a segment of some sort of safety action plan that would be acceptable to USDOT. And we don't have that in our region at this point in time. So we're just trying to avail ourselves to the $1 billion per year that will be available to deal with safety issues.
So this one that we're applying for is the SS4A grant.
That's that is the safety action plan. Yes, we'll be developing the plan itself.
Okay, so for council on page 70, where it says that those SS4A grant priorities, and it lists the priorities, number 4 on that says align with the department's mission with priorities such as equity and climate. And then it goes on, and then it continues down further on that page, and it says that the SS4A grant program aligns with both the departmental and Biden-Harris administration activities and priorities. Then further down on 71, it says the department encourages, and this is where in your exhibit you said it encourages, but if it encourages it, are we going to put anything in there that does say that we're going to comply to certain things? Because I read through those executive orders and our community doesn't align with those.
So in terms, Mayor, council member, in terms of the specific issue of the greenhouse gases carbon reduction, no. Our grant application is not going to commit the region nor individual agencies to a reduction. If you choose as part of your implementation grant applications to make yourself more competitive, if that's an option, then you can. But it is not going to be part of the grant application, nor is it going to be part of the final plan that's developed by the steering committee, which will be our joint applicant members that will be participating on that steering committee.
Okay, so if there is any further action that's done on this grant, does it come before us and we get to decide from there how we move forward with it? Or after we apply for this, and if we yes this, then can you just do whatever underneath that, and therefore we don't know what kind of equity and climate stuff that's going to be put in there?
So, Mayor, council member, as part of the joint applicants, all the joint applicants will be part of the steering committee. So as a joint applicant, you will have Mark will be sitting on that, and my expectation is that he would be briefing the council on any of the discussions, particularly if there's anything that is problematic from a council standpoint. Trust me, from my viewpoint, on my membership, I can read them pretty well. It would be a non-starter for us to put anything of that nature into the plan for the region as a whole. Our goal is to make ourselves as competitive as possible, to avail ourselves for $1 billion per year for safety. The key aspect for us is going after the safety and dealing with accidents, dealing with deaths.
Mark, we can hold you accountable to that? Absolutely. That you'll notify us?
So Mayor, follow-up, just clarification. Thanks, Matt, for being
Yeah,
here.
thank you.
And thank you for your questions. I'd be like for you to be on that committee if at all possible. So are we going to see, so you're going to have these different folks making decisions. Mark, thank goodness he's here and part of that. Are we going to see the final application before this is submitted?
Sure, if you guys, yeah.
I will not vote for this unless that is one of the conditions.
Okay, we'll ensure that it, yeah,
Yeah.
he will ensure that
So
it happens.
I'm not supportive of this request then, because this is saying that we are giving you authorization to go ahead and apply, is my understanding from this request.
It's for a letter of support and for us to be a joint applicant on the application.
No, I'm not going to be, personally, I'm just speaking for myself, I'm not going to be a joint applicant unless I see what the application is. So the way this is written right now, it'll be a no vote for me. Okay?
Are there any other questions?
Mayor, really quick, I just wanted to give President Haverfield some reassurance that roundabouts are included in this plan. Not in their plan, sorry. It is approved that the money can go towards roundabouts. Thank you for answering.
I'm more than happy to support this if the application is agreeable. So, okay?
I think we're in good hands with Mark and his review and working with the team because this represents communities in the Treasure Valley that are all aligned. And so I don't have any concerns with the oversight that we have.
No, I don't either. I'm just the wording of this request, Mayor.
Yeah.
It says that letter of support for Compass Safety Action Plan application.
Unfortunately, and I hope I'm correct in saying this, and visiting with Tom, and I have to be careful. He mentioned, because of our current administration, much of the federal grants that we have coming forward are going to be referencing climate change. But one way that we address, when you reduce traffic setting at stop signs, we can qualify, and Mark, I think, did you and I talk about this also, or maybe I didn't? Yeah, we have ways that it's very easy for us to align without just by doing the work we're trying to do, right? Increase efficiencies, keep traffic moving, keep it from setting at stop signs. We're going to reduce emissions. So it's going to be pretty easy for us to find ways that we can fall within the guidelines, but it is what we have to work with today with the current leadership at the federal.
I understand,
Federal side.
but I think I've
Yeah.
I
I think
repeated
this was
myself
good.
three
Yep.
times. And
Well, I think we have said 3 times, though, yes, Mark will bring it forward, and we'll ensure that you have an opportunity to read it.
I'm being obstinate here, but that's not what this request states.
The request is to authorize the mayor to sign the letter in support of the application, right? I don't think the application is written yet, is it? Is it?
No, I mean, it's a 600-word document, and then there's the backup data, which is the key aspect that they're interested in identifying whether it merits getting a grant.
So we can get a copy of that and send it to council before it goes? Okay, we will do that. Yes, are there any other comments? Yes.
To support Darrell's position, I think when you read the text here, the premise is that we're behind the government's move to reach net zero emissions economy-wide by 2050 with a 50 to 52% reduction in emissions from 2005 by 2030. I mean, so the premise is that we're looking to go electric I don't support that. So if the premise in this whole item is to reduce emissions to that level, that's pretty drastic. I mean,
Let's Matt respond to that. Matt?
Mayor, council member, the premise of the application has nothing to do with emissions reductions. It is solely to deal with safety as is stipulated in the name of the grant application.
So why then is this information in the text or the body of what we're asking the mayor to be able to sign?
I am at a loss at what you're pointing at, so I don't know.
Page 71 in our report, right in the
The
middle.
letter, though, is not 71 pages. So let's,
Mayor, if I can clarify something, only because I've read through this so many times and combed it. I think, because I have that highlighted too, and I think that what President Haverfield is talking about, and this was my question the last time too, and then after getting some more clarification, I think that that's in regards to applying for that implementation grant. So it's separate from the action plan grant. But it's still, it's weird wording. It feels very non-transparent.
So if the intent was not to review that as a part of our decision, why is it in there, I guess? It seems to me that they're implying one thing. The goal is to achieve net emissions of 50 to 52% reduction by 2030. That's pretty drastic, and that would mean a change above and beyond what we're currently experiencing right now with fossil fuel driven cars, trucks, trains, planes.
okay. So,
I still don't see it. So- Oh, tack. Oh.
Mayor, I know they're going to get some, but, and I'm still going to make a motion because we're getting close to public hearings.
To the
So
extent
my
possible.
motion is that once we see the application and review the application, we will make a decision whether we authorize you to a letter of support for this action.
Are you deferring it?
Deferring it, yes.
and the deadline for the application is?
September 15th, we will
Sep-
submit it.
September 15th?
So we have
We
one
will
more
be
council
submitting
meeting.
it, but the process is, I need to check with the staff that are writing the grant, whether there will be sufficient time to include you as a joint applicant in that process at that time.
Okay.
I think the deadline that he had provided you was the end of August.
It was the end of August that we needed to have an
Mayor, I'm
answer by, and
happy with a special meeting if need be, at
Okay.
least as long as we see the application.
Okay, so with, that was a motion.
I made a motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. With, so from a discussion standpoint, my question for the rest of the council, would you support a special meeting to come back and readdress this in special meeting?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, is there any other discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Chingula,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Bauer. No. Haverfield,
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Matt, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thanks for
being here this evening, appreciate it. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, so Doug, let me ask you a question. Is there anyone else here besides yourself on this? Do you want, is it real quick? Go, let's do. Okay, we're going to move to item 6.2. This is an action item. This is to authorize the finance director to sign the electronic payment service agreement with BDS, expanding our current services in order to transition online payment processing services to BDS.
Right. So Mayor, Council, this focuses strictly on the utility billing services. We currently have an arrangement with BDS, but what I wanted to share with you is that the expansion would be to the online payment processing. And whether we do this with BDS or with Springbrook or another agency, we're going to have to eventually do this. The challenge is that in taking this step, we will be requiring eventually, in the next 2 or 3 months, everybody who has an online account to recreate that online account. Now, this will save us $15,000 to $30,000 a year. We'll eventually have to recreate the online account with their current service provider, Springbrook, is
been pushing us for the last couple of years to update this and go with a new merchant provider. So it's not a question of if, but when we have to do it. If we do this with BDS, we enter into an agreement where we save money and we do it at our control. And if we do eventually upgrade the software at utility billing services, we won't have to do this again. So it's one and done. And the agreement does allow us to exit services from them, 60 days notice on us and 90 days notice on them. So if we don't like it, we can back out fairly quickly. But we have a good track record with BDS.
Are there any questions?
Mayor?
Yes.
Just looking at the finance charges, who's that language directed towards? Is it to the city of Nampa? Which language in particular? Finance charges, client agrees to pay all charges, services, and merchandise, whatever, a monthly service charge of 1.75% per annum. I mean, right, so we pay that right now in a function with Springbrook. This is just transitioning the cost from Springbrook to BDS, and will actually save money in the process. So 1.75% that's not per month, that's per year. Per transaction, so a merchant fee. So whenever somebody uses a credit card, you have a merchant fee. This is the merchant fee they're charging us to use online payment processing. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? What is the will of the council?
Mayor, where's the reading for the request? I mean, I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing the request act.
Is to authorize the finance director to sign it, the agreement?
Right, the agreement should have been in the documentation.
I see the agreement, I'm just not seeing the request.
Well, it's on the action item for me to sign the agreement with BDS.
I mean, I so move as stated that we sign this.
Second.
I'm just looking at the packet.
The action item is to authorize the finance director to sign the electronic payment service agreement with BDS, expanding our current services in order to transition online payment processing services to BDS.
So move.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Angulo.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Bauer. Yes. Brunner.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
While we're here, I'd like to go ahead and move real quickly to Patrick, to your Wells Fargo, to 6.3 on the agenda. And this is to authorize the mayor to sign the service fee addendum for the Wells Fargo Merchant Services Agreement for online credit card transactions for development services fee for building, engineering, planning, and zoning applications and permits. And this was reviewed and approved by legal. Since we're on this, I thought.
So move.
Okay.
Second.
Is there any discussion, questions?
See how much we trust you?
Mayor Kling,
Yes,
I do have questions.
yes.
Yes.
Patrick, maybe this is not for you, but I question what Wells Fargo does, and anytime they turn around and give us another fee process and hidden fees, and I worry about this because I don't know exactly what they're doing or what we're doing as far as this is concerned, especially to our patrons. So the 3% pass-through banking fee, that's going to be not delegated to the city of Nampa to pay that. I think I talked with Doug earlier. That is for the person that's using the credit card. So we will have no fees whatsoever related to this, correct?
Mayor and Councilman Rodriguez, that is correct. We currently pay somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 out of our department budget in banking fees for credit card service fees. What this will do, and it's very similar to what Meridian and Boise does, is it'll come up with a pop-up window when you go in to buy your permit with a credit card. It'll tell you that you have a 3% fee. Do you want to adopt or accept that? And then we have to give them other options. The other options are you can mail in a check, you can drop off a check, and we will also be setting up an e-check, with a lesser fee. And so that's our plan.
Okay, so is there a fee structure that we haven't seen, or is this just a number that was made up by Wells Fargo or by us? I'm not sure who did that. I mean, we're saving $400 and something thousand. So is that going back to your budget because of the savings or not?
Mayor and council, yes, it'll be an expense we will no longer have to bear. And really what brought to light is over the past few years, when we went from having maybe 30% of our permits online and through COVID, 100%, our credit card transactions just skyrocketed. And we went from maybe spending about $150,000 a year 2 or 3 years ago to over $450,000 a year on just credit card fees for that transaction fee.
So how much was the city of Napa paying for these credit card transactions and administrative fee?
We currently have a 2.7%, but it's based on older prime rate. In the course of actually putting this agreement together, the prime rate has gone up. So we've lost, 0.3%. So our customers are going to pay a little bit more. Boise has a 2.7% fee rate because they've had theirs for years. Meridian hasn't had theirs that long. They have a 3% pass-through rate as well. It's very similar to, I think, DMV also has a 3% rate, and they use Access Idaho instead of their bank for the processing fees.
Okay, so if this is approved, then this fee will be eligible. We, the city of Napa, will not be charged any administrative fee or hidden fee by Wells Fargo by using their process.
I should explain. I was the impetus for kicking this process off because I saw, and Patrick and I talked, we saw the increase in fees. And it's not just an attempt to shed fees, it's an attempt to save the cost to the city, which is dramatically increased, by giving the end user the option of paying with a credit card or paying with an electronic check or a regular check. There will always be fees that we pay for the banking, for the normal banking, but related to this transaction, and this one only, we're shifting the fees away from the city to the actual user of the money. So when we have a developer bring us a credit card process payment for $500,000, and we have to pay 3% on that, whereas in the past we didn't, we're taking resources away from the city. But I should point out, this focuses only on development services and planning and zoning. We're prohibited from doing this in places like utility billing and other places. Golf course, we could do it, but I don't want to hurt the golfers per se, but you could. Now, but this is an attempt to shed costs being borne by the city that are increasing as we as a society move more to an online type of environment. So.
Okay, so the next question is this then. Was these charges and these costs included in the 23 budget? Because I didn't see that.
Yes, they were part of the budget.
Okay, so
It's in there.
I've never seen an amount that we pay Wells Fargo for their services. And I've asked for that several times. So can you tell me how much we pay Wells Fargo every year on?
It's not just Wells Fargo. We pay merchant fees to a half a dozen different merchant providers. So we're working on that right now, Councilor. I agree that's something that you as a council and the mayor need to see. We're working on a comprehensive analysis of banking costs, of which merchant fees are one part. And it's very comprehensive, but I take your question very seriously, Councilor. I agree with it.
Well, I've asked that for several times and I've yet to receive it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to support this until I see an agreement with Wells Fargo in document form, so we know exactly what we're doing.
Well, we have the document. We can provide that to you, but it won't be any different than what we've described.
Okay.
It's in the packet.
Yeah. Okay. I saw that. I just wanted to know that, make sure that all the fees that incurred, because I know every time we turn around, Wells Fargo's dinging it for something. And I just want to make sure that all costs that regarding this issue will be covered and taken care of. That's all.
I am not certain where we have shared that Wells Fargo is dinging us for things, but we do pay for services. That's certainly true.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
How do you feel about Wells
I don't like Wells Fargo. I think, no, I'm sorry, but I bank with them, and that's my opinion only, but I just want to make sure that this money that we have, the $445,000 or so, is going to go back to the city of Napa. That's all.
It does. That saves the city money. And I want to thank Patrick for stepping up the plate to help carry this across the finish line, because I started it, was unable to finish it due to budget process. So he stepped up and said, let me carry this across the finish line. I think he's done a very good job. And I think this is what we need to do in certain aspects, because we know, and I don't want to go too far down this road, but we're going to see reduced
revenues coming into the city just because of the economic situations. Anywhere we can look at controlling costs is going to be an advantageous preparation for us to pursue.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Chingula?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Bauer? Yes. Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, it's time to move into the public hearings, and we're going to start with item 7.1. This item is being requested for a continuance to the September 19, 2022 meeting, and this is pre-annexation and zoning to RS 22 and a development agreement for Victory Springs subdivision located, it's for Black Summit LLC. It's at 7722 East Victory Road. So it is being requested for a continuance to the September 19 meeting, and I would stand for a motion for
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Chingula?
Yes.
Bauer? Reynolds?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
So item 7.2 is an action item. This is annexation and zoning to two-family duplex residential zoning district, a development agreement potential and subdivision preliminary plat for Parker Estates subdivision at 525 East Greenhurst Road. This is for Darren Taylor, subdivision maker LLC, representing Left Right Center LLC. So this was continued from the August 1, 2022 meeting. This is one that I will be stepping aside and letting Randy Haverfield see this, and I may be testifying. So there we go. So I'm going to step aside, and Randy, I'll let you take over.
Thank you, President, for wearing your sport coat.
You look good today,
I
sir.
came prepared. Never know.
And Dale looks good, too. So does.
You're just full of compliments. So, is this my cheat sheet here? Okay. All right, I'll let the mayor get seated. Okay, so this is an annexation and zoning request to RD. We've seen this twice. This will be our third time, I believe. So our last meeting, we did defer back the applicant to meet with staff. Hopefully, what you'll be presenting to us this evening we'll let you come and the applicant, if you can come forward and present the project to us again, we'd appreciate it. Your name and address for the record first.
Thank you.
It's not the football game, so.
Just curious is all. I was just curious. Darren Taylor, Subdivision Maker LLC, 1434 New York Street, Middleton, Idaho. Thank you, Mr. Chair and council members. We were here 2 weeks ago. We talked about the changes that had been made previously, and we were asked by the council to consider more addressing design, density, and setbacks. So we have submitted a revised plat. Hopefully you've all seen it. If not, I've got a large copy that I can route for you. Regarding the two buildings at the northwest corner, those originally were single-family dwelling. Second version that was submitted were townhouse units, and we were asked to change those back to single-family. We did that. Yeah, it shows there, northwest corner. City Council requested increased setbacks for the front yards. We have 20 in the front, 5 on the sides, and 10-foot rear setbacks on the single-family dwellings, and 15-foot rear setbacks in the townhouse dwellings. The townhouse dwellings contemplate an attached covered patio. With an attached covered patio extended behind the dwelling, there will be 5 feet to the back property line. So 15 foot from the building to the property line, 5 foot from the covered patio, for those who want a covered patio, to the fence or the property boundary. We talked about reducing density. We've gone from 28 dwelling units to 25, so over 11%. We say, oh, only 3. Well, yeah, and it's more than 10% reduction. So we believe that we've done that. We've removed a single-family dwelling as well as a townhouse unit. And we feel the more space as we look at the preliminary plat. So what's provided here are 7 single-family dwellings and 18 townhouse dwellings. Council requested that the CC&Rs for the proposed subdivision align with the townhomes at River Oaks CC&Rs. I obtained a copy of those and submitted them as part of the packet, so you might have seen those. The townhomes at River Oaks property is a rectangular shaped property. It's nice, it's big. It's got waterways on 2 sides of it. So natural canals lend to open space and green space in that subdivision. As I read through the CC&Rs, I can say that we mirror their development standards. There's nothing in here that's unique that we're not doing in our subdivision as far as design or feel or open space or green space. I think we've got a little bit less because we don't have the waterways fronting our properties like they do. The CC&Rs for townhomes at River Oaks do have 2 requirements that we're not planning to do in Parker Estates. The first is that the HOA is responsible for all exterior maintenance of the dwelling units in townhomes for River Oaks. We're not contemplating that in Parker Estates. We're contemplating that each individual landowner is responsible for maintaining their property inside and out. The second CC&R condition, or not condition, CC&R provision that River Oaks adopted August 18th, 2016, was that at any one time, there can only be 4 out of 43 dwelling units for rent. In Parker Estates, we had not contemplated such a restriction. If the landowner owns a building and wants to live there, great. If they want to rent it out, okay. We just hadn't contemplated that limitation. I wrote down solar shading, and I think somebody notified me it was solar setbacks, so I think that was my misnote. So I'll go back and look that up. Invited the applicant, landowner here. He'll be building in this subdivision, and he's going to be able to address the appearance of the homes, the townhomes. You'll notice we did not stagger them. We did a version and it showed them staggered 3 feet, and it didn't even look good on paper. And the landowner said, there's a better way to do that. So let me talk about that. So he'll address that. And then we talked about the long road. I think the comment was made, oh, that's a raceway. So you'll notice in the center of the 575-foot long road, Singleton Lane, we've got the tot lot on the west, just north of the drainage area. And east of the tot lot, as it crosses the road, is a raised road for a traffic calming device and a feature. So we do not anticipate people speeding up and down this. Would like to remind you that the road is not a public road, and the road is not a separate lot. So each lot goes to the center of the road. The entire road is a fire lane, so there's no parking on the street. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Could you repeat what your setbacks are again? Rear setbacks were 15?
Yes, 20 in the front and side and they're on page, wow, it got loud. I think it's page 2 of the preliminary plat. So 20 in the front and side for single-family dwellings.
Say that again, 20 on the
That's-
side?
That's not right. It's 20, yeah, it's 20 in the front,
Front.
5 on the side for the townhouse units. The single-family dwellings have an 18-foot front because they have a 10-foot back.
Okay, let's go over this again. So you have 18 feet for the single-family residence.
In the
They're
front,
all single-story, correct?
single-story,
And what was the back, setback?
10,
And the townhouses, what were the front setbacks?
20,
And the rear?
15. To
Okay.
the building, 5 to any covered patios, assuming you've got a 10-foot patio.
Okay. Just in looking at the concept that you put up on the screen, they have on the right side or the east side of the property, those are the townhouse units with 2-car garages. So the inundation between the 2 units is I would assume, the entry, where someone would walk up between garages to enter the homes, correct?
Yes.
So in essence, there's very little space available for vegetation, trees, except, I guess, on the property lines that would not have the 0 lot line on it. So, okay.
Yes, so we submitted, I think it's a sheet L 1.2.
Okay.
Is this drawing in a black and white. It's got dimensions. We also submitted this color plan. After our last hearing, I was visiting with some neighbors outside, and they said, you don't have any vegetation on the inside. And we said, well, we do. It's just going to be in the CCNRs. You don't call it out in the landscape plan for the city because the city only asked for common lot landscape plan. Anyway, so we went ahead and put this together, and I'd like to submit this, Mr. Chair. These are, actually, let me be careful. I gave one to the neighbors. But this is in your packets.
I don't have my packet with me. Yeah, as long as the staff has that on record.
So you'll see there's a tree in front and at the rear of each townhouse.
And the single-family residence, are those 2-car garages as well?
Yes.
Okay, and why is the one single-family residence on the southern boundary, it appears that it's not got the setback that the others do along the western boundary?
That is a great question. Yeah, it looks bigger on the west, but the south boundary looks a little short. Let me look at that.
Okay. So does anyone else on council have any questions for Mr. Taylor?
It does look like it's a 5-foot.
Okay. So the intent was that all of the single-family residences would have at least a 10-foot minimum setback on the rears?
On the west side, I don't know if that's true on the south side because it backs up against the hill that goes up to the fourplex units. I forgot the name of that subdivision.
Okay, well, we can talk
White
about that.
Hawk? Okay, yeah. So we would like to request that we just have, as is required in the code, a 5-foot setback on the southwest single-family dwelling. All the others on the west boundary do have a 10-foot setback.
So there wouldn't be any ability to have any vegetation on the south side of that residence for shading purposes? That's your request. There just wouldn't be any space available for any vegetation.
I actually don't understand. There may be trees, there might be shrubs, there might be rose bushes.
On
there
an
might be-
adjacent property, I'm talking about on your property.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Mr. President, on the west side, there should be room, should there not? I'm looking at this
Yeah,
diagram right here.
there's a tree at the southwest corner.
Yeah, I see. I mean, I don't know what that round circle thing is, but it looks like a tree. Agreed? Okay.
Okay, thank you. So who is representing us as far as for staff? Parker, come forward. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, no worries. So we've got the builder, landowner, developer here, and he'd like to just talk about those elevations.
Okay.
If that's okay, would you like
Sure,
to
you
be
have, still
before
have
or after staff?
3.5 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
And again, your name and address for the record.
Tracy Skidmore, 9840 West Overland, Suite 120, Boise.
How do you spell your last name?
Skidmore.
We've got it. Thank
And I
you.
apologize, I didn't get the note on the jackets, or I would have worn a jacket as well. You guys all look great.
We only take 3 points off of your score for that.
I was hoping for a 2-point deduction, but I apologize. No, I just want to talk real quick. I've actually, the developer as well as part of the, one of the landowners is also, we plan on building this out as well. Trident Homes, I own Trident Homes. Instead of doing a staggered, setback for those houses, you'd see a lot of you look down the road, it'd still be look uniform because it'd be the same, or if you staggered them. We would do three different elevations of those 9 duplex or 9 townhomes. And you'd have different elevations, be a board and bat or a modern style or a craftsman style. We could change the roof trusses. We can change a lot of different looks of those, so they wouldn't all look the same. Our intent isn't to look the same, and also to change and have multiple between brick, stucco, and different types of siding as well to break that up. Our intent is to make a nicer looking subdivision for single family ownership that, to try to provide something that's somewhat new and it's affordable in Nampa. And density helps us get that, and trying to hit that prime, 1,500 to 1,800 square foot resident, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, in a nice location. So I think it will not look the same. It won't be all the same monotone colors. We'll paint it. We'll do that. The other thing about the setbacks, even the single-family residences, I want to clarify some of this stuff with Darren. There's a 10-foot patio on the back of those single-family residences that's covered as part of the roof line. So there is patio on the back of those. Even though it's 10 foot, there actually is more. Now, part of the building does come out to that 10 foot, but we want to have, I can't really say we want to have family, but we want to have space for animals or space for people. And the other thing is we don't have to do covered patios on those townhomes, so we can have a 15-foot setback on that. We just thought it'd be nice to have a covered patio. They are east-facing for the most part, so they are blocked by the sun for the evening. But at least if we had the zoning had a 5-foot setback, so I helped to design the buildings for the 5-foot setback. We can really make it a 15 and just do a patio out there without covering it and still maintain the 15-foot setback. We're just trying to maximize the land and reduce the cost for development.
Thank you for that clarification, because a covered patio is a part of the structure.
Exactly.
And so whatever columns that are supporting the roof need to be 15 feet off or 10 feet off the property line to comply.
So we'd just do a regular patio instead of doing a structure on those back patios.
Okay.
Still gives that patio feel without having the structure.
Okay.
And we're welcome to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions for the builder? Mr. Skidmore? Skidmore? Yes.
Yes.
President Hefferfield?
Yes.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say thank you for coming and building in Nampa. One of the things that we talk about is that we kind of want to move away from a lot of that kind of cookie cutter look that we've been getting. And your homes, I'm on your website right now, your homes are beautiful. They look very custom. They're very, they vary in different sizes and looks, and it's really classy. So thank you so much.
We just did a subdivision, or we're doing a small one in Meridian right now, Locust Grove and McMillan, that is Raspberry Crossing. And if you look at the pictures, they're on the house is on Bright Angel. There's 4 different colors on every exterior of the house, and they look different. We try to do something that looks nice. It doesn't cost that much more to do that, to give that sense of pride and ownership and a good feel. So
Awesome. We appreciate it. Thank you.
So if you were to describe 3 different architectural characters, craftsmen, I heard, what would be the other 2 that, if we were to put into a development agreement, the language that you would follow? What would be the other 2 architectural styles that you would want to have listed?
Well, I was really more talking about doing like a board and bat as well as a lap siding, and then doing a modern.
So variations of a craftsman style?
Variation of craftsman style and also a modern style.
Modern and craftsman, and
Yeah.
so there'd be 2 types.
Well, and then you can just do your regular lap siding, which is, I don't know, what do you want to call it, a contemporary?
Yeah.
I could, if I knew we were doing this, I could actually draw the elevations for you and show you.
Well, that would be nice. Can you do that in interim when we have staff come in?
I will do my best. They will not look as good as you guys' suits, but I'll do it. No, just kidding.
I've got some sketches going up here already, so.
Let's put our heads together. I think we can come up with something.
Council President?
Yes.
We just need to have, if one council member looks at a website, we just need to all be able to see it, and the rest of the audience needs to be able to see it. So we need to probably bring it up on the screen. So if you could give me the website again.
Go ahead.
www. Trident Homes LLC.
Trident?
Trident Homes.
TRIDENT.
You're building up at Summit Ridge, right?
No, I'm not.
Are you not?
No.
Okay.
.com.
TridentHomesLLC.com.
So, Mr. President, I may, just a quick question. So you're going ahead and building and all these different, so you are not custom, you're not going to have the buyer first and decide
No,
whether stucco, brick, et cetera.
yeah, we'll design that ahead of time and then sell off of that. Basically sell off of
So
the,
you have that as perspective and where a buyer can come in and say, yeah, that's what I would like.
yeah, I think it kind of depends. We've done it before where they pick colors and stuff. One of the challenges is that not everybody likes, good colors. And if I can control that and do
Well,
something
yeah,
that
hopefully.
matches, that otherwise they end up, I want a yellow house and then they want a green house and then they want a, we'll keep it earth tones.
Yeah, we have-
Keep it a fairly, good color palette, but have a varying color palette, so it's not all the
Thank
same.
you.
Okay, here we go.
Okay. Any other questions?
I do build in Napa. If somebody asks about Summit Ridge, I do build it. I've built in, I'm gonna have a brain fart. Stella's Point. I've built in.
Okay, that's
a
where I've
couple
seen
other-
your
Yeah,
name.
I've built in a couple other subdivisions in the Canyon County.
Not sure who I'm thinking of then at Summit Ridge, but thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. President, I just have a comment for Darren. Darren, I just want to say I've appreciated your patience and with all of us through this process, and your attitude has been fantastic. So, and it seems like you really worked with the public that way as well. So, thanks for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
You have something, Joe?
Yeah, Mr. President, the reason to go through this process of showing the website, it truly is just the consistency to the public, so they know that every single time you have any public meeting, the only information you're considering is information that the public gets to be participating with. So it's important to make sure that we show this.
Thank you for the
as it was
reminder.
reviewed.
Parker, you're on deck.
You can share as soon as I get to the bottom of this page.
While he's going through that. Thank you, council members. The request is for annexation and zoning and a subdivision preliminary plat. I've been through this presentation. This is the third time now, so I'll just cover the changes. So the original concept was 20 townhouse units and 10 buildings, and then 8 single-family homes, that being 28 units. This is the second revision, so it's down to 18 townhouse units and 7 detached homes for a gross density of 8.62.
Can you repeat that? 18 townhouses and how many single-family?
18 townhouses, 7 single-family detached.
Okay.
For a total of 25. Gross density of 8.62. I think we're aware of the surrounding area here. The applicant went through the details of what was discussed last time. Requesting single-family detached homes on the western boundary, increased setbacks, decreased density, the CC&Rs, and then the traffic calming and the design elements. Staff finds that the property is contiguous, that the RD zone is consistent you have the opportunity to decide whether this is the right timing for and location for the project. Here's a site plan if we want to come back to it. We've looked at this one before. Here's a comparison of the previous two versions. You can see the major difference would be the townhouses along the western side being changed to single-family homes, and then the increased setbacks. Typical correspondence, nothing has changed from last time. The proposed use is mix of single-family detached and attached, which matches the adjacent uses. The proposed gross density, as I said before, 8.62. The plat is 25 units, net density of 10.85. The max would be 12.44, so we're under the maximum allowed. The original density was 12.15. The first revision was 11.72, and now we're down to 10.85. The proposal provides 10% qualified open space. The conditions are in the staff report. One thing that I will add, going back to the landscape plan, we require that each unit has 2 trees, so we'll be requiring more trees for the townhouses. So they'll have one in the front and then one in the back for each unit is what would be required.
What caliper tree?
What caliper?
Yeah.
1.5, yeah.
Class 1 or 2 tree?
Class 2.
So it would be for shading purposes.
Mhm, yeah. So while he's confirming that. Yes, it is Class 2.
We have 20 feet in the front to work with, but you only have 10 or 15 in the back. And again, the root system for some of those class 2 trees are bigger than 10 feet.
So the language actually says 2 things. A new residence or subdivision in the district shall provide 2 trees per dwelling unit, 1 class 2 tree in the right-of-way, and 1 any class tree on each lot.
So 1 class 2 and the other can be whatever.
Yeah.
What, can you remind us what the road width is?
24 feet.
24 feet and no sidewalks? That's to curb? Is that to face of curb?
That is from sidewalk to sidewalk, I believe. The applicant could.
There's no sidewalk shown on the plan.
It would be from the edge of the driveways, 24 feet between.
And I'll let you finish your presentation. I've got a couple of questions for you, Parker.
We can go to questions.
Okay, back to the sidewalk. Where is the connectivity to Greenhurst? Normally, there would be a sidewalk that would run from the southern portion out to the front, especially with an RD zoning. I don't see the sidewalk for the connectivity.
We'll have to clarify with the applicant on the sidewalks. They're generally not shown on plats.
Needs to be accounted for, and if the 20-foot setback off the front is intended to host the 5-foot wide sidewalk as well, then that kind of cuts across the parking.
Right.
So there would need to be consideration as far as in the layout, which would affect the setbacks.
Right.
Potentially.
Right.
But you're the planning department, so I would let you make that call. I know you hold me to a higher standard than everybody else.
Amen.
Rightly so. Any other questions for Parker?
No, Mr. President, just education for me. What's the most common in a class 2 tree?
Ash, maple.
Maple.
Ash, maple.
Yeah.
Maple, really, maple?
Yeah.
40.
And so we're talking about, in most cases, what average height?
40 feet.
40 feet?
Yeah. plus.
So a pine tree, evergreen, that's not allowed?
You can break up landscape.
Actually, you can have a pine tree on the property, you just can't have it out in the right of way.
It's not
So
considered.
on the property, you can.
Thank you, Parker. So we've had the applicant speak, we've had the staff, and now it's time for public testimony. And the number one person to speak tonight is our beloved mayor, Debbie Kling.
How many do we have, Mr. President?
Just her. No, I don't know.
So good evening, council. So I'm Mayor Debbie Kling, and I reside at 2327 River Oaks Drive in Nampa. And, you know, I really appreciate Darren and the work that he's done to bring this to where it is. It is dense, but just a couple of thoughts. The two areas, well, I'm going to start with trees. I want to talk about the two areas in the HOA that they're not adhering to and the importance of them. But the tree, in the size 2 tree, one thing we have found at River Oaks, it'll lift your driveway. So when you've got that small, I mean, the trees are important, but if we're required to do a class 2 tree and it's too big, you're going to ruin the pavement. What I'd like to mention, though, is one, the drainage issue. A resident here may bring that up, but we want to make sure that's in the development agreement, that no drainage issues, water does not leave this property and go down to the others. But then on the HOA, the rental piece, boy, the one thing I have seen personally is that when you have a property that's full of rentals, that's where your valuations could change a lot because of them not maintaining their properties. Also, if there is, I would strongly encourage the HOA to require them to maintain the color palette that you have identified with the Craftsman style, that they maintain that color palette within their HOA guidelines. Otherwise, they could paint it yellow or whatever. And then whatever that proper percentage is, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, and then no on-street parking. That's another thing that is required in our current HOA. The key is that you maintain the values. That's really the goal, is to maintain the valuation of the properties. And so I think that one of the benefits we've had, ours is a 20-year-old, 22-year-old subdivision. And yes, the colors could get updated just a little bit, but the values have maintained well because of the ownership, how we maintain the area. It is clean, it is neat, and so that's really the goal with this one, is that we achieve that same thing. So, and I'm sorry I don't have my head into a lot of details tonight, but I appreciate the work that's been done. It is dense, but it's certainly improved as it goes along the way. So, and then the HOA, initially when we talked about the alignment with the HOA, I think the intent was that it didn't have to in all respects, but in the respects that it's going to maintain the value of the homes and not diminish the value. So I would stand for any questions.
Mr. President, you want to go first?
Well, I was just going to ask, do you know what's in the HOA? Is there anything about architectural character?
Not that terminology, I don't think there is.
Okay.
And
And
I couldn't answer it.
So you wouldn't know about setbacks either then? Okay.
No. And I don't know that it needs to align with the setbacks. The fact that they've moved it from a 5-foot to a 15-foot setback, I would say a covered patio is really nice. That adds to the value of a property if you have a covered patio. So it would be unfortunate to eliminate that opportunity because I think it adds to the value of the property.
No, it's just if this is stating that they're willing to meet the intent or the language of your HOA or CCNRs, and but except for those 2 items that he mentioned, but if there's other information in there that we're not aware of, that they're basically stating that they will obligate themselves to, and that includes architectural character and setbacks, I guess that just needs to be known.
And I can't speak to architectural character, but I think the intent really is about maintaining home values, which is the color palette and the parking guidelines and
Building
the rental
materials.
piece. Those things are, I think, the things that are probably most important at this point.
Thank you. Councilman Bruner.
Mayor, speaking to the rental piece, so if I heard correctly, your subdivision allows for four out of the 40-some, or about 10%
Yes.
And so that's just first come, first served. There's 4 rentals and no one else can rent
Yep.
until one opens up. So what are you what are you suggesting for this? The same thing, 10%, or you are no rentals in this property?
I would suggest something similar like the 10%. But we have a new HOA president here, and he may be able to answer
That
the
Mr.
question better
Glaze?
than mine.
Okay.
Possibly, I'm not sure. So I am thankful for other people that run the HOA. I do not. I just happen to live there. Are there any other questions?
Good job, Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who else do we have signed up?
Mr. Chair, we do not have anyone signed up.
Is there anyone else here this evening that wanted to speak that didn't get signed up? Come forward and give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Don Glaze, and I reside at 2360 River Oaks, Napa 83686. And I appreciate what the mayor shared, and I would just like to agree with her. And in answer to your question, there's a petition after 4 rentals. So the petition, an owner might say, I want to rent even though we have 4 rentals already, petition the HOA, and they may say, thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yea or nay, or otherwise there's a waiting list, I take it, or you can
Right.
put your, okay.
True. Just a couple things. I missed the last meeting, but I was at the first meeting, and I haven't heard any discussion about anything under the ground, because one thing that happened with the Wilson Creek townhouses was that there was a lot of lava rock, a lot of explosions. Maybe you remember that discussion from the first meeting. And I'm not sure what is in line for any protocol with that happening, because we're pretty close to that property. And a lot of shaking and moving going on. The other thing is, I know that in our HOA CCRs, it talks about the HOA taking care of the maintenance on the outside. That would be the roofing, the painting, all the lawn and sprinklers. And, a concern of mine would be not only that there's a potential for X amount of rentals out there in this new subdivision, it could be half rentals, we don't know that. And what happens, I think, in regard to that, and also the fact that maybe HOA wouldn't take care of the maintenance, is that what's the potential of the outside appearance of those houses? Right now, in our subdivision in River Oaks, everything is well maintained because we have all that in place. And depending on what an HOA fee is in a subdivision, there's potential money to do that. So that might be something that they would want to look at. And my final concern would have to be with the drainage also. I'm not sure what's in place or what that discussion has been. So any questions for me?
Any other questions for Mr. Glaze? Is it Glaze?
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming tonight, what you had to share with us. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on this topic that didn't get a chance to? If not, Mr. Taylor, if you could come back and chat with us a little bit more. You've heard some comments made by council and by those that came to speak on this topic tonight. So if you can share your thoughts, that'd be great.
Thank you. I'd like to address a couple, and then my Tracy would like to address a couple, if that's okay. Just quickly.
You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Quickly, the Class 2 tree in the front yard, it sounds like the root system might be incompatible with the concrete. And so we'd ask the council to consider that requirement. Since we're doing a development agreement, it can be adjusted in there.
I'm sorry, can you're asking if we would not have the Class 2 requirement?
Correct, in the front.
Okay.
To me, it makes no sense to plant something that's going to break something that it's a built-in detriment and maintenance expense.
So the reason for that would be the area for the tree to be able to grow. So you're basically compounding it if we put the Class 2 tree requirement in the rear by having less of a setback requirement.
It may be, the Class 2 might be incompatible with the setbacks that are identified in the RD zone.
Okay. Go ahead and share your other thoughts.
Thank you. We discussed drainage, no drainage leaving the site last time, and we're certainly okay with that. That's very standard. No on-street parking, we're okay with. The keys to maintain values, we agree. We heard some testimony from Mayor Kling that covered patios can be desirable, and maybe not everybody wants one, but maybe some do. So we would like to be able to have that option with the townhomes and with the single-family dwellings. And
So are you asking for a reduction in the setback requirement for the patios?
no, the setback in the rear is 5 feet.
So you're at, as far as if we're talking about a 15-foot rear setback to the building face, the patio, if it's covered, you're asking that that would be able to encroach in that 15-foot?
We're asking that it be able to comply with the step backs and the standards today.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Continue.
Tracy?
Darren stole some of my thunder, I apologize. No, there is no, since it's a private lane, there's no parking allowed. We have 12 additional parking spots that we've added to this for off-street parking, as well as parking if they, they have garages, they could park in. And the trees, we build all the time on lots these sizes. And we meet the requirements by the city of Nampa, and that's just what we're required to do. So I don't know about having a different type of tree. If that's what's required, we've done that, and we've done that for years. So I don't know if that's, maybe we're overthinking that caliber, that size 2, or that caliber 2 tree.
It's what's in our ordinance.
Exactly, and we do that, and we build on these lot sizes all the time with 2 trees. This is not an atypical type subdivision. This is what we do. The one thing, as far as in our HOAs, we will have a review committee that'll have to approve paint colors for the houses. That's part of what the CC&Rs will require. As far as maintenance, what we've seen in subdivisions that have maintenance agreements, the HOA fees are substantially higher than what an affordable housing house subdivision might be. That could increase your HOA fees to over $100 a month compared to $20 to $25 a month for a standard home. So that is another burden to a potential homeowner. And as far as rentals, it's pretty rare to have a restriction on rentals in a subdivision. So we haven't really addressed that. That was new to us as far as, restricting somebody's use of their personal property. So, yeah. And as far as, we did do we did hire All West to come in and do all the drainage we retain on site. They did test drainage. They did perk test on our area. We've done all that in advance, and there is minimal. They also did testing for lava. There is minimal areas, and what we've done in the past, we haven't blasted in the past. We've actually rock hammered that out. So that is the intent at this point.
So you said Atlas did a soils report?
All West.
All West?
Atlas. Oh, sorry. I
Okay.
apologize.
And what was the depth of groundwater? 13 feet. Okay, so that's not an issue.
And that was in the report we filed the last go round.
Okay, so I would assume then the lava wasn't encountered in the test pits?
Only in the back and the far southeast corner was lava detected.
Okay. And then the stormwater retention, is it in a swale or is it underground that you're anticipating?
Underground.
Underground?
Yep, underground.
Okay, so the grass area would be totally open for play purposes?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
We wanted to maximize the green space and make it a nice subdivision for people to play in, as well as landscaping along the area where we increase that Hammerhead T area so we could do parking there as well.
So ADA parking, is there a requirement in this subdivision? Maybe that's a staff question. You probably have it taken care of. It's not required for the RD?
Councilman, because this is privately owned, there's no ADA requirement.
Okay.
Anything else?
Any other questions?
President, sidewalk, you mentioned.
Yeah. The connectivity for someone walking or someone in a wheelchair trying to get from Greenhurst down to their unit,
in a private lane, my understanding, there's no requirement for sidewalk.
So we would need to have staff give us clarification on that.
Daniel?
Any other questions for Mr. Skidmore? There, the brain trust, the collective brain trust is working over there, so.
Mr. Chairman, a private drive aisle like this does not have a code requirement for sidewalk. If it were one of our smaller, skinnier street sections, there are requirements there, but those are for public streets. On a drive aisle of this nature, there's not a requirement within our code.
So the RD zone doesn't require it?
That would be that table, if the RD
I know, they
zone
punted to your table.
Well, so if it's not in their code, it's not in engineering's either.
Okay, I just know in an RD zone that I'm working on in Nampa, we're required to have sidewalk connectivity, but it's multifamily, but still RD. So is there a difference?
Patrick's going to answer.
Yeah.
Single-family and duplex is not.
You need to come forward, or, there you go.
Okay.
Patrick
Sullivan,
Uh-huh.
Director of Building Safety. Single-family and duplexes and townhouses do not require ADA parking. It's a threeplex or larger requires ADA parking.
So it's not a condition of the RD zone?
No, it's a condition of the type of residence.
Okay, that was my question.
So, Mr. President, is there sidewalk on Greenhurst side? On the north side?
Councilman Brunner, yes, they will be required to install Greenhurst along their, or sidewalk along their Greenhurst frontage.
On the frontage, but not internal to the development.
Got it.
Mr. Taylor, anything further you wanted to share with us? No, thank you. Okay. I guess we've covered everybody then, so all minds are cleared. I would accept a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Is that an all in favor? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so what's the will of the council?
Mr. President, I just appreciate the accommodations that the applicants have made. I am concerned, not just because the mayor said it, I've just lived in this city so long, to see what happens when residents turn into rentals. And so that is a concern, and I would find to accommodate what everything has been said here, except I would want some type of restriction as far as number of rentals. And if we follow the CNRs of the other subdivision, then that would be 10%. That would be about no more than three, probably not more than 3 rentals.
President,
Pardon me?
I'd like to make a comment.
Oh, go ahead. Councilman Bauer.
So Darrell, because I think sometimes rentals can be terrible, and then sometimes you'd be surprised you'd be surprised how many rentals are in Middle Creek, for example. And if you look at if you looked at the details, do you know if Middle Creek has a rule on rentals?
I do not know. As far as I do know that there are rentals in Middle Creek, and I do know of 2 that are very, very poorly kept.
Okay. Then there might be some that are nicely kept.
Yeah, I'm not, of course, as most human beings, you notice the ones that are not.
Yeah.
And that's when you ask the questions, is that owner or is that rented?
It just, I don't want to be too extreme government.
No, and you know me, I don't either.
Yep.
I just know that I've seen subdivisions, and I realize most of them are 30, 40 years old, but first-time home buyers, and then those have turned into, whole subdivisions have turned into rentals in the city of Nampa.
Okay, some of the issues, I'll just bring them up, that have been discussed is the CCNRs, modify, or having their CCNRs match the adjoining, what is the name of your subdivision? River Oaks. Speed restriction as far as a traffic calming device, which I believe they have a speed bump located near the tot lot, is what I heard. So density, design, and the setbacks were a part of our last conversations that we had on this. The applicant has stated that they'll have 2 to 3 different front elevations, craftsman and contemporary style. The setbacks proposed were 10 feet for the single-family residence, which would be a single story, 10 feet off the rear, 18 feet off the front, a 24-foot wide drive lane, 20-foot setback to the front of the townhouses, and then 15 feet to the property line at the rear. I would assume there is a fence requirement somewhere in the language of our text. I don't have it in front of me. So that hasn't been mentioned this evening. It was mentioned that the patios, if they are provided, if they're covered, that there was a request that they would be able to encroach on the setback. And then further discussion with the contractor developer that would not be the case, that they would have the covered patio as a part of the building itself, and that would be not within the setbacks, which I would prefer. Sidewalk connectivity to Greenhurst was stated that it's not a requirement in this case. Trees, 1 class 2, and then the other tree could be anything. Drainage is contained on site, and it's stated that depth of groundwater is not an issue. Lava is really not an issue. Shouldn't be any problem with being able to retain any storm drainage on site. And there wouldn't be no on-street parking allowed. So that's kind of what I wrote down. Is there anything else?
Mr. Councilman, Mr. President.
Councilman Rodriguez or Gomez, depending on where you want to be tonight. Sorry, that's an inside joke.
Okay. I think the other thing was the maintenance of the color. I think that's going to be depending on what you come up with. So that would be the other one.
You're talking about the maintenance agreement?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And then also, I'm concerned about the HOA is combined with the CCRs. Some of those are, do you agree to some of those? And then some of those you don't agree with some of the regulations. So, for example, the 10% rental. And I don't know if we can enforce that. It kind of bothers me, but I'm kind of struggling with that a little bit. So I
It
think
was a request not to have to comply with that. So
Yeah.
I think the point that you're making is you might not go along with that request.
I'm struggling with it. I'm the HOA president in our subdivision, and I struggle with rentals. I do. And unfortunately, that's the name of the game. So, but I think you covered most of them. The fence we talked about last time. I think we're good, sir. How's that?
Any other thoughts by council?
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
I had heard, and there might be a head nod one way or the other from the applicant, that your comments on the rear yard, that it was a 15-foot setback from the building structure, but that the patio would encroach into the 10 feet.
He was asking if it was covered that it could encroach. And then the builder said no, that would not be the case. It would be a part of the structure. So any columns supporting a roof structure would be honoring that 15-foot or 20-foot or 10-foot setback. That was, I heard 2 different things. So, thank you.
Councilman, I
Yes,
believe the builder's intention is that the covered patio would be at 5 feet and the face of the building would be at 15 feet.
So if that's the case, I have an issue with that. So, as a councilman. Any other thoughts?
President Haverfield, really quick, to clarify,
Yes.
in the neighboring HOA, it is in there, a percentage of how many rentals they can have? It is in their HOA.
Yeah.
So if we do bind them to comply to the neighboring HOA, that is part of it.
Yeah, that it would be limited to 10% or whatever we state in the development agreement. Because I believe, isn't this a development agreement as well?
Yeah.
Yes. So we can create a development agreement that makes statements just like that, that they would follow with River Oaks subdivision. I'm sorry, I need to be talking into the mic. And that their request was that they could exclude the requirement from the River Oaks sub CCNRs that no rental restriction would be applied, and that it's a private drive. I guess the exteriors was the other one, that they would like to be able to have
Owners would be responsible
for their
for
own
inside and
exteriors.
out. And I'm Mr. President, I'm fine with that. I think if we control the rentals to a certain extent, I think that will take care of that. But that's my
Okay. So can we speak for a minute for a concern that I have, and that's the setbacks? Especially on the west and south sides of this property, where you're talking about harsh sun, summer sun, especially on the south and west sides, and not having adequate setback for vegetation to be able to shield those homes. You know, we, by excluding, especially on that southern, where it's gone now, the one house that was on the south only being 5 feet, there's no way in the world you can have a tree there. It's just not going to grow, or it's going to lift the foundation. So I would be okay with the 10-foot setback as far as for the single-family residences on the west side and on the south side, but that if a patio is provided, that it could not be covered to take away that 10-foot setback. I think a covered patio should be a part of the structure and would be held back off the property 10 feet minimum.
So, Mr. President, explain to me, I realize life of the property, but trees take a while to grow. If you have a patio, you're going to have at least your, for the single level, of course, single family, that's going to provide shade for that area. So
For
are you
the patio?
a patio will provide shade for where that patio is, if you have a cover.
It could, yeah.
I mean, a tree that starts at 3 or 4 feet, or whatever the case might be, I don't know what these number 2 trees, what they start at.
Any tree in a parking lot, as an example, whether they're a class 2 or class 1 tree, the requirement by our own code and ordinances is a minimum of 10 feet.
10 feet to start.
10 feet, yeah. Just to allow the root system, which if you know, the tree foliage is about the same as the root system underneath them. So a part of it is going to go down and go underneath asphalt, it'll go down underneath a patio. You take away if you restrict that to 5 feet, there's no place for the roots to go.
Okay, so explain to me, and I'm not trying to be argumentative like usual, but explain to me the worst of two evils of if you have a large tree, which the developer said he does he puts these trees in all the time, but it's tearing up concrete within 10 years or whatever the case is, or providing shade.
We have that site put back up.
I mean, what's the worst? Not having quite as much shade, or having good, sidewalks, so.
Well, that's a question you can ask yourself.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, but I'm hearing that these trees eventually, I've heard, contradictions, but these trees eventually, it's, bad analogy, but it's like on an orchard right now, we went ahead and put down our gravel, and now it's being torn up. It doesn't make sense to put in beautiful sidewalk and then in 10 years have that sidewalk all cracked and have to be replaced because you have to have a certain type of tree because of shade.
Well, I think our staff even indicated that the vegetation has to be brought back before them.
Okay.
So the design of the landscaping is, they've just put some token elements on the plan, but the requirement, I guess, what we're looking at tonight is a request for this annexation and zoning to an RD. There is a preliminary plat that's been presented to us, an opportunity for us to make a determination on whether we agree with it or don't agree with it. We haven't agreed with it twice, we've deferred it. Tonight, I think we have a better plan, but still one that needs to be further considered, or at least direction given on my part for me to be able to get behind it. Otherwise, I will deny it.
President?
Yes.
So if they have a covered patio, that will probably increase the value
Possibly.
of the place and make it nicer. If we make a rule, then we might not get a covered patio, which would decrease the
Well-
value, but then allow a tree.
Yeah, if you look at the plan, though, those units, if the covered patio isn't the full width of the rear of the house, there could be a portion of it that could be projected out with a covered patio and still allow room for a tree to be placed in the back, which I think would be important to be able to provide not only shading, but a buffer for the neighbors to the west.
And so, Mr. President, if you want to make a motion on that, I'm fine with that. It doesn't have to be a full coverage, as far as from one side to the other, as far as I'm concerned. I realize duplexes are going to be different than the single homes.
I can't talk to the applicant, but staff, can you tell me how wide those footprints are for the single family? How wide are the lots?
Yeah, Councilman, the lots are 50 feet.
50, so they're 40, if you take away the 5-foot side yards, okay? Okay. I'm okay with allowing 25% of the rear of the house to be projecting into that as long as it's a covered patio, but not the full width.
I'm fine, I'm personally fine with that.
That would allow the balance of the 15 feet, or 10 feet in this case, to be a tree. That could be a Class 1 tree. The Class 2 trees could be in the front, providing shade. So, the council, do you want me to make a motion? Do you, okay. So, what I'm hearing is that the HOA alignment with a 10% limitation of rentals, is that what you were looking for?
Is that?
To,
I personally think that's extreme. I'd like to loosen that up.
I say, yeah, I agree with that.
What?
What was Dale?
Mr. President, I agree with Jacob.
I can understand the concern with the rentals, however, I feel like it's kind of an overreach of government to tell someone what they can do with their personal property.
And I totally agree with that. I'm just always concerned with neighbors and what they're looking at. And so when it affects the other folks in the city of Nampa, that's when I come,
I know, I understand.
feel like we,
So what,
and that's why we have code enforcement, et cetera.
we've got,
I just think it's fine to have a little bit, but just 90%, I mean,
no, it's 10%.
I know, but that means, only,
It's two,
So what would you?
it's 2 to 3 units.
Mr. President, Councilman, what would you go along with?
I would just make it less extreme, 50%
know,
or at least, loosen up that number some, at least even 25% seems.
Yeah, I will go up to 25%. Let's
Okay,
negotiate.
so allow up to 25% rental? What you're saying?
That's better.
So 25,
What if
Times
we were
whatever.
able to remove that piece entirely, but then in the HOA required them to have some sort of an upkeep requirement?
well, that's another item that was requested.
HOA is not gonna do the upkeep.
Yeah, that each homeowner would be responsible for their own units, which is kind of difficult when you got a 0 lot line.
But there's not someone in the HOA, because like in my neighborhood, if you're not mowing your yard every like 3 days, you're getting a letter. Like, they're for real. So I'm just curious.
It's a good place to
is-
move to. Then.
I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can remove that, just so that there's more accountability on the renter and the homeowner by the HOA, rather than us dictate what someone can do with their property.
Okay, so back to the River Oaks subdivision, CCNRs, they do have a common maintenance agreement requirement. So what they were looking for this subdivision was to not have that requirement.
But they would have a color code and so on.
Yeah, architectural character would be given, that'd be an architectural review committee that would give an okay. But as far as maintenance, ongoing maintenance, that's a part of the CCNRs. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, in the existing neighborhood, is what you're saying.
No, yeah. They have it there. We're saying that you need to match, so you need to match, do the same thing they're doing. Right?
Mr. President, have we decided on that 25% or not? Back to that. We're okay with that?
Okay, we're all right with the 25%
Let's
rental
go with the
units.
motion then.
Okay. So from what we've seen is preliminary plat that has a speed bump, correct, staff? Has a speed bump? Okay, they were talking about a development agreement then that would indicate that the builder would be responsible to provide 2 to 3 different front elevation types. That would be, would that be reviewed at the staff level? Or is that just up to the homeowner potentially to come up with what they like?
Councilman, staff can review that, yeah.
Okay,
It might be difficult because these building permits come in at different times. And I'm not sure what your request is as far as putting them in different places in the subdivision.
okay, so in the development agreement, I'll just make a statement that the builder would be responsible to provide 2 to 3 different front elevation types that would not be, so that they would be mixed up throughout the development, so that there's not one right next to the next one. So is that clear enough? You got, that's tough, I'm sorry. What else did we have? That, again, the tree types would be per our current ordinance requirement, 1 Class 2 tree, that it would not be waived. Stormwater retention is on site. Fences would be per our standard, is it 6 foot? Okay, 6 foot site obscuring fence around the perimeter of the site, abutting other property. The common maintenance agreement would be per the River Oak subdivision, is that correct? That the rental units would be allowed to have up to 25% of the total number of units in this private development that could be used for rental purposes. And again, that the setbacks rear for the single family would be 10 feet. 25% of the rear of the building could project into that 10-foot setback, but not more than 5 feet, as long as it's a covered patio. Same thing with the townhouse units, 5 feet into it, no more than 5 feet, which would maintain a 10-foot landscape strip along the side of, or rear of those units, so that vegetation can be grown.
Mr. President, just clarification, how wide a patio on the townhouses?
They could be 5 feet covered. They could be 10 feet if they were uncovered.
So 5 feet of concrete.
No, 10. They could be more.
I'm talking about if.
It's just the covered portion. So that's a structure that would be no more than 5 feet or no closer than 5 feet to the property line.
Okay, 10 feet of concrete, but 5 feet, only 5 foot, half of it.
Can be covered, yeah. And again, same requirement for the townhouses, no more than 25% of the unit could be projecting into that setback. I don't know if you want to read that back to me or not.
Was that a motion? I'll do a second.
That was a
if you
motion.
want. Okay.
Mr. President, I want to ask the clerk if she'd like the mayor to become.
It will be shortly.
I guess I'll
Probably have a
make,
cup of coffee, too.
I'll make a second on that motion.
Okay. So all minds clear? Is this how they do it in Meridian, Joe?
No.
President,
Yes.
just to confirm, I know that you went into particulars, but you did not state that you were recommending approval of the entire item.
Oh, okay. Well, let me think about it for a
There
minute.
you go.
Char for the win.
I'll second that motion again.
Yeah, okay. It is to approve with those conditions.
Councilman, can I
Yes.
clarify one?
Yes.
The maintenance agreement, the applicant stated they were not wanting to put that in. Are you
Mm-hmm.
wishing to have that as part of it?
To get one vote, yes, I guess. That was the intent, was that.
What was the reason they didn't want it in there?
Councilwoman, they wanted the owners for, so the, as it states in the River Oaks HOA, that the maintenance is done by, not by the private owners of the buildings themselves, but by a common maintenance. This applicant wants the subdivision, the owners of each unit to take care of their own units.
Wasn't that what you said?
No. I said that, basically, I'm sorry.
I'm back. I'm sorry, Mr. President, you're saying the HOA is going to
Be responsible.
is that what you're saying? Because I'm not in favor of that.
Oh, that's not what you wanted? Okay, so I will amend the motion.
Thank you.
I will amend the motion then, that the common maintenance agreement for the exteriors would not be a part of the HOA requirements, but that each of the individual property owners would be responsible for their own property. Which comes to some pretty interesting color tones when you.
Well,
zero
then
lot
that
lines.
would be controlled though by the HOA as far as the color.
Oh, my second, still good with that?
Yes, but also yes. I'll go yes on that.
Okay. All right, any other conversation on this? We good? Okay, call for the vote.
Brunner,
Yes.
Chingula,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes,
All in favor, motion carries.
there you go. We work hard on these things.
Thank you, Darren.
Okay, it's almost 8 o'clock. Is there a desire to take a break, or are you guys good?
Yes.
Small break, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our next public hearing, which, and I apologize, we are going in the order that they're published, and our budget hearing is last. Hopefully, this public hearing will not take long, I'm hoping. So this is item 7.3 on the agenda. This is an action item. This is a variance to our Napa City Code 10-19-6C, requiring a 10-foot setback for a private roadway at 3353 and 3341 North Black Butte Court. So this is located in a light industrial zoning district for Don Birch. And is the applicant here? Thank you. Go ahead and come forward. Are you Don? Great. Well, go ahead and restate your address, Don, and
It's Don Birch, and it's 22977 Notice Road, Caldwell, Idaho.
great. So what are you wanting to accomplish?
Well, I am the owner here, and I'm also the developer of Black Butte Business Park. And this lot is, as you can see, or I don't know if you can see, but it's like 500 feet long, and it necks down halfway down to a 26-feet sliver that goes 250 feet long. So we're trying to make that sliver a little wider where we can use it for storage, parking vehicles, or whatever.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Great.
If we put something in the back of it, it's kind of like landlocked, the way it is. You can't get to it unless you move everything in front of it, and it's really pain to utilize the land that way.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions for our applicant regarding this? Okay, so as you probably know, and you're welcome to share more right now, or we can go ahead and have the staff report, do the public hearing, and I don't see that we have anyone. Do we have anyone signed up? So then we'll come back to you to ask you further questions. So do you have anything else you'd like to share right now?
Just one other thing is, I also did phase 1 and phase 2, and in those phases, there's like 4 other pieces of property like this, and all of them are 10 foot from back of curb. The same that I'm seeking.
Okay, so with the variance for those has already been granted, and you're wanting to do this?
Well, it wasn't a variance when I did them. It was a long time ago, so it was, I don't even know if there was a code then, but I made them 10 foot from the get-go, so.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. So you're wanting to just replicate what you've already had the opportunity to do previously? Great, thank you. Well, we will have you come back.
Okay.
Okay. And Parker, is this yours?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The action requested is a approval or denial of a variance requiring a 10-foot setback from the private roadway. This is, Black Butte Court is a private drive, not a public road. Surrounded by IL zone, Indian Creek to the south. Again, the variance is to, shall not be considered a right or special privilege, but it's granted upon showing of a undue hardship due to the site characteristics. The literal interpretation and enforcement of the regulation would be a result of practical difficulty or necessary hardship. So we'll look at the code section that's being asked a variance to. The 10-19-6C is the section that requires a 10-foot setback along the frontage. The 10-1-8 requires that the fencing be at the setback, so the fencing would have to be at 10 feet. And then 10-22-5J5 requires that any area that is not paved or screened from view would have to be landscaped. So the picture here you see, what is required today is 10 feet. The fence can be at that 10 feet, and anything between the fence and the roadway would have to be either paved or landscaped. So the applicant is requesting a variance to reduce that down to 3 feet. There's another drawing of that. There's a view of the plat. So the staff analyzed it based on the narrative that was supplied, and the applicant stated that the variance was to allow for truck turning, navigating to get to their loading docks. Staff was unable to analyze whether a truck can actually turn within that because we didn't have the turning data to verify that. So as staff, we couldn't find any evidence that the 10-foot setback would create a hardship. Yes, the site is unique shaped, pie-shaped, that could prevent some development towards the narrow end. But again, the request that it be reduced for turning radius just wasn't found to be, by staff, to be sufficient. The correspondence that we received, just the building correspondence, I won't go into more analysis, but I will point out that, again, if the applicant wishes to pave the entire lot, he wouldn't have to put any fencing in. But if he's leaving it the lot to gravel, then he would have to put screen fencing in, and it would have to be at the setback. There's recommended conditions of approval and a motion, and I will stand for any questions.
Margaret, I do have a question because maybe I'm just not understanding this. The property is currently what? Is it gravel? Is it?
It's currently undeveloped right now because we're in the process of reviewing the building permit.
Okay, so when you mentioned that it would have to be, currently nothing's on the property.
Right, so Mayor, looking at this is the site plan for the building permit. You can see the building on the right side there, and then to the left would be left to gravel. So the parking along the street would be paved, but everything to the left would be gravel and would be fenced in.
When the applicant mentioned that he had previously, I guess maybe there wasn't a code then, previously had a lesser setback, where is that in relationship to this?
Mayor, the setback has always been 10 feet, and that's what we've required for other developments. So all the landscaping should be at 10 feet for the other developments here.
Okay, I think the applicant mentioned that maybe I misunderstood what he shared, that it was not. Did I misunderstand that? I'll have to come back to it.
I think Mayor, there may have been some misunderstanding because when we first advertised for this hearing, we referenced the wrong code section. Because typically along a public road, we require a 15-foot landscape buffer, but this is a private drive, so we only can require 10 feet for the building setback.
Okay.
So there seems to be a little miscommunication on what's being requested. What we have that the applicant is requesting is a reduction from the 10-foot setback to a 3-foot setback. So he would put the fence at 3 feet.
From the private.
From the property line.
From the property line, which is part of the overall development, that he owns the entire development, is that correct?
Correct.
And it's a private road?
Correct.
Okay, so is the 10-foot setback what is required in a public road? Or do we require the same, actually, it's right, it's a lot more because in a public
Mayor,
road.
I'd clarify that the setback is still 10 feet. We would require a 15-foot landscape buffer on a public road.
On public road, but since
Correct.
this is private,
Right, it's 10 feet.
it's 10 feet. Okay, thank you for explaining that.
So Mayor, if I may, and it may be in the pack, and I apologize if I missed it. So what's on all sides of this property?
To the south is Indian Creek.
There's no development on the south side?
No, across the creek is Simplot, but they're directly
Simple,
adjacent.
and that's what I
is the
want to
creek.
know is what industry or whatever is, and what the potential could be in the future, so.
It'll be all industrial around it.
So we're not talking about any residents being concerned with, okay, thank you.
So is it already built out to the is this actually north in the way it's laid out on the screen here? So go back to that picture that we were just on. I was just wanting the clarification that, see the lines? That looks like storage units or something in there. That is to the northeast, if that's northeast, it's to the kind of right, upper right side, all along there. See all those lines? What is that indication of?
Mayor, are you looking at these
Yes.
lines? Those are lot lines, so those
are
are
lot
all
lines.
separate lots. Yep,
Part of the same Black Butte
correct.
development? Okay. And Mr. Birch owns the Black Butte development? Is that correct?
I
All of
believe
it?
so.
Okay. So separate lots within it.
Mayor, I think that there have been some lots that have been bought and developed. So he probably owned the land, all of it at one time, but, you know, businesses are moving into these lots.
Okay. Excuse me. Council, are there other questions for Parker at this time? Actually, this is a good time to have any questions. Yes. Are there any questions? Yes.
Now it's on. I was looking at a letter that was written to you, Parker, from a Mr. Evenson. And it was talking about the turning radiuses, and you mentioned that you weren't able to verify that at this point, that without the variance down to 3 foot, that he didn't think that the truck parking was possible.
Correct. Mayor and
semi?
Councilman, the city just doesn't have the software to do the truck turning analysis, as I was told by one of the city assistant engineer. What the applicant has said today is that it's something different, that he's wishing to utilize the western portion of his lot for storage of things and just wants more space for it. That's different than what you discussed before and what was written in the narrative, but I guess we can analyze it, and you can analyze it on that request, I guess, to see if his hardship is substantiated or not.
You mentioned something about if the whole width is paved, then there's no setback requirement? I did catch that right?
Mayor and Councilman, yes, if the entire thing is paved, then he doesn't have to put in a fence and he could park really wherever.
So how wide are we talking about as far as paved section? Is it 20 feet or is it less than that or more than that?
So anywhere that is left unpaved would have to be fenced. So, I mean, if he's going to pave his entire lot, it would be a lot of pavement.
Oh,
but-
you're talking about the lot itself?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I was thinking about the drive lane. Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions at this time, this is a public hearing, and we'll go ahead and open public hearing. Parker, thank you. So we do not have anyone signed up to testify on behalf of or in opposition to this project. Is there anyone in the audience that had intended to testify? Seeing none, this would be an opportunity for our applicant to come back forward. And I think you heard our discussion and questions, and this would be a great time to maybe give us some insight.
When Jerry was talking about the turning radius, I believe he was talking about the turning radius down in the narrow section, not at the top, because there's room to turn up the top. There's just no way to turn once you get down in there to park a vehicle or to turn a forklift to get a hold of a pallet or whatever it is like that. That's what he was talking about there. And there is, in between the lot and the creek, a bike path or a walking path that the city required me to put in to do this development last year. And we did. We put 1,000 feet of walking path down through that took up 15 feet of this lot. So that kind of is what made it pinch down at that end right there. That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, council, do you have any questions for our applicant? No?
Can you know, we've kind of reading on this stuff. Can you describe any more of the hardships that it
Well,
would, a
all of
little bit
these-
more in detail?
Yeah, all of these lots out here, most of them industrial stuff, people stack stuff on them, or they park a vehicle and use it for storage. And like I said, 250 feet by 26 feet wide. It's a long ways, and it's really hard to put anything on it or to use that property, because if you put something at the back, you have to unload the whole thing to get to it. And so in 250 feet, it's a day's work moving stuff around to try to get something that's stored at the back.
So would you be fencing that then if you move
Yes.
to a 3-foot? You would put fencing, what kind of fencing?
It's chain link fence and it has slats in it. I believe that's a code of the city. That's what we do every time. We have to chain link the whole front of that and put privacy slats in the fence.
Okay. Okay. All right, council, any other questions? Okay, any other comments? No more
I got
comments?
one more question.
Okay.
Have you been in discussion with any of your property neighbors
Never.
on this?
Nope. There's not really anybody around. The freeway's on one side.
Yep.
The state's property, the wild game thing is on one side and Simplot's on the other. So other than Idaho Power is the only neighbor, and a pole yard right there at the north end.
So it's truly industrial space around you?
Yes.
Pretty much, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So council, if there are no further questions for our applicant, then I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What is the will of the council?
Mayor, I move to approve the variance of Dam City Code 1019-6C requiring a 10-foot setback from the private roadway at 3353 and 3341 North Black Butte Court, two parcels in the light industrial zoning district for Don Birch.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. With that, we really need to identify the various conclusions of law. And so regarding the practical hardship that this is providing, is that correct? So would the practical hardship be related to the inability to use his property effectively without the variance giving him the extra 7 feet? Is that a legitimate hardship, practical hardship?
Madam Mayor, it is. That's kind of what I heard. I think that was a great question from Councilmember Bauer to draw that out. It also hit on the extraordinary site characteristics, that this lot is very unique and is rendered unusable to a large degree because of those characteristics. So the variance could relieve and address both 1 and 2 as the applicant provided.
And is that sufficient for the ruling?
And that's stated, Mayor.
Yes, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, and we've identified the conclusions of law. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Pingula,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
There you go. Mhm. Okay, we've had a number of people waiting for budget, and I sincerely apologize that it is so late. So we are moving to 7.4 on the agenda. This is our last public hearing of the evening, and this is the fiscal year 2023 budget hearing.
Give me just one moment to bring up the budget resolution on screen.
And this is, for those that don't know, Doug Racine. He's our Chief Financial Officer and City Treasurer.
Mayor and council, is that readable on the screen? This is the budget resolution that was published in the paper. I wanted to start with this. Let me scoot it over just a bit here. There we go. Okay, so Mayor and council, okay.
I'm sorry, that was a sidebar. I just said, I like the screen. So for those that aren't accustomed to it, this new screen is to help us so we can actually see what's on that screen. It may not look too pretty on the outside from that side, but it's so helpful, so we can actually see it. This, yes, yeah. We needed one for, yeah.
Actually, for the older council people.
I would never say that.
Where is it? Can't see it.
Well, mayor and council, regardless of age or predisposition to visual challenges, I present to you the fiscal year 2023 budget. My intent is to present initially a highly summarized recap of the budget, and then open, well, along with a few of the primary assumptions that we use to build the budget, and then open it up for questions or the public hearing, the commentary does. And as needed, I will go into greater detail for any of the budgetary specifics. The fiscal year budget for FY23 is proposed at very bottom of the screen, $285,814,015. That is a 2.9% increase from last year's amended budget. It includes $130 million of capital spending, of which I believe about $94 million is related to water and wastewater and the wastewater treatment plant build. It includes a property tax increase. It ended up, because of the difficulty in estimating the levy rates prior to having the valuation, because of the way the House Bill 389 was written, the actual increase ended up being 2.52%. I couldn't get it to exactly 2.5, which was what we agreed on, but it was just the calculations because we don't have the numbers available to us from the county until actually after we present to you in the workshops. So the increase was 2.52%, about $190,000 out of the $360,000 total for a 1% increase. The budget includes $52,303,000 for general government. And I'd like to point out that in the general government of $52 million, $31.4 million is for police, our safety. That's, and it, coincidentally or interestingly enough, the amount of property taxes devoted to the general government is about $31 million, just less. So the police and the safety budget use up virtually all of the property tax dollars coming in. So everything else in general government is funded by fees or shared revenues from the state. And that's amounts to about 57% of the total general government budget is funded by property taxes. In the total budget, $285 million, property taxes account for about 14% of the total budgetary budget. And that's down a little bit from prior months, primarily because we have greater borrowings in here for the wastewater treatment plant build. A couple of the, so as we look over, the grant funds are $17.6 million. Enterprise and special revenue funds, which include the list up there for streets, fleet, water, wastewater, the utility billing and so forth, is $199.6 million. And the capital improvements are $16.3 million. Those are obviously net of the amount of money we're spending for wastewater treatment plant because that is in the special revenue funds. Also included in this budget are the market adjustment we proposed of 2 plus 2, which is 2% plus $2. That, for those who are maybe not familiar, that is geared toward providing a greater degree of increase to those on the lower end of the wage scale. Those are the ones most heavily impacted by the economic challenges of inflation. And so this scales the increase much greater towards the lower end of the scale and gives those people who may be struggling to fill up their gas tank or choose between gas or food, gives them a much greater percentage on the lower end of the scale. We're also covering in here about, let's see, what was it, $260,000 of increased fuel costs. That was on top of a $260,000 increase last year. It covers increased utility costs for electric, which were up about 8%. And if any of you read the paper in the last couple of weeks, the gas company, Idaho Gas, approved a 27% increase on gas. We have built that into the budget. We anticipated that. Those items are all built in here. But we have looked, and we will continue to look at areas going forward of where we can offset expenses. One of the points we did this year is we actually cut down by $77,000 our operating supply line budget. We cut that by $77,000, and we will look in future years for greater detail. And I've gone over this with the mayor, and we'll discuss it at some future time. There are a number of initiatives that I'm driving within the city to look at costs and make sure that as the economy maybe softens and maybe some of our new revenues decrease, we will begin in future years to look and see how can we offset that within the city as much as possible. Those are the primary facts of the 2023 budget. If you would like any more details, I can bring up my summary and walk through it. It was included in the publication, and we reviewed that in the workshops last month, but I'd be glad to reprise that if there's any desire for me to walk through that particular 4-page document again.
Mayor Kling?
Yes.
So Doug, as we talked to Patrick earlier, how he's going to revamp $445,000 back to us.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an enterprise fund, so we will be able to use that back in our our budget?
Yes, but let me clarify. The funds that we're saving there were never part of a property tax cost or a shared revenue. They're driven by fees paid by builders and developers and people who want to come in and build within the city. But we're saving those funds within the development services and not just reopening them for spending again. In fact, I would propose that as we save those monies, if there was a need to spend them on something else, that would be an item that probably should come back before the council if it was a significant value. But we would look to retain those as fund balance through reduced expenditures.
Okay, so the fund balance will go back to the reserves then?
Each fund has its own reserve. And this would go back to the development services reserve.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Mayor.
Could I make it, yes, and I just want to make sure we clarify and make sure we understand this, and I don't want to create more confusion, but the dollar amount may not be 400,000.
Right.
Oh, that's very
It's
correct.
directly tied to how many building permits come in, which could be less than last year, and how many people switch over to checks versus, and so it's, that was for reference purposes only,
Right.
referencing that 400,000. For FY 2023, we have no idea what that
Mayor,
would
thank
be.
you for that clarification. We budgeted 400,000 for the current year in FY '22. We're probably going to actually spend closer to 500,000 in this current year, but the savings will be determined next year based on activity.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Okay, I got you now.
Okay, thank you. And Councilman Haverfield?
I'm just looking at the general fund, legal services. Does that include prosecuting services?
Yes, it does. The prosecuting services are approximately $55,000 per month. For clarification on the increase there, the current structure of the prosecutorial services bill allows us a maximum of a 3% increase per annum tied to what we do on our wage increases. If we increase wages by 0, the invoice would go up by 0. But if we increase wages by 5%, the invoice still only goes up 3%.
So are you talking about prosecuting services?
Canyon County Prosecutorial Services.
They can raise up to 3%, even though we haven't.
No, if we haven't, they are tied to what we do on wages. If we do 0, they're limited to 0. If we do 3, they can take 3.
Okay.
But if we take 5, they can only take 3.
And you stated earlier that we increased our budget by 2.9%? Is that?
No, that's the total budget. I was speaking on the wage lift. Theirs is tied to the total dollar values in terms of percentage increased 2.9%. But the wage increase for the 2+2 was greater than 3%. Therefore, the prosecutorial services bill is limited to a maximum increase of 3%.
Okay. I just had a thought and it escaped me now. You talk too quick.
Sorry, I'll slow down. We'll take longer tonight.
Sorry.
It's fine.
It was
Are
a
there
good
any
question,
other-
I'm sure.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, Mayor, I had another
Yes.
one. So, Doug, this does not include any of the ARPA funds or any of the other
ARPA
revenue?
fund spendings are included in this.
Oh, they are?
For FY '23, we have $8,772,000 built into the budget. In FY '22, we amended 5.8 million. That's 14.6 million in total, leaving us about $3 million left of unbudgeted spend from ARPA monies. Now, that we have, in the council, we have determined how to use those monies. So when I say unbudgeted, they're not floating around waiting for a purpose. The purpose has not come forward yet.
Okay, because I thought some of that was going to be used for capital
It is.
improvements. That's
It
what
is.
you're talking about.
So in FY '23, there is a $5 million set aside for the water tower and $3 million more for the wastewater treatment plant build. Those are the primary expenditures in FY '23.
Okay, so actually, when you say we increased our budget 2.5%, it really wasn't really 2.5, it's lower than that.
Well, if you take out that, it's lower, but we did spend a lot last year and this year from fund balance for investment in the city in terms of street, water, wastewater, and other areas. So that spending is an investment in the city, and it's not an increase in tax that's using the money we
That's
have.
the point that I was trying to make out, is that
Right.
we're really under the
Yeah.
the line here for that.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Yes.
It came back to me. I
Okay.
thought. Two things, though. Now I have another question. Part of the 2.9% increase was for a police grant match, correct?
We have two DOJ grants in the budget right now. The amount of money that we will be spending for those, for the first 4 years, they cover the base salary, not the benefits and other things. So there isn't a match this year. The match will be coming when the grant falls off in 2024, and we got to come up with the money to pay for it.
It was a grant that we were applying for that we didn't know if we were going to get.
Oh, that's the one for the airport. We had a significant grant, and if you recall, the original budget was $290 million. This one is $285. We had a $5 million grant for the airport that did not come through, so we pulled that out.
Oh.
But we kept the grant match of $250,000 in, so that when we eventually got the right approval on the grant, we would have the monies to match it.
For the police, right?
Well, that's for the airport.
For the airport. I thought we had something set aside for staffing.
Help me understand, are you talking about capacity set aside for police if we need to use it?
Yeah,
Yes, that capacity is set aside.
right. And how much was that?
Within the budget, we added 0.5% to help repay the grant. That was $185,000 plus or minus 1,000.
Is that what you're referencing?
Right. And so that's what we were talking about, a
Right.
2% initially, up
Right.
to 2.5, and now we're at 2.9.
And I put
No,
no,
okay.
we're at 2.52.
We're not at 2.9.
Yeah.
So there was a difference there. The 2.9% is how much our overall budget increased from last year. We
Right.
only took, from a property tax standpoint, a 2.52.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah.
So the other question I was going to ask you then is on the enterprise side, the wastewater, 92 million, how much of that is the SRF loans as a
I think
pass-through?
the current year, it's about, if I recall correctly, I'd have to look back, it's about $45, $46 million.
Okay.
And
So
they're,
that number in a regular year would not have been as high,
no,
obviously.
it will eventually come back down. as
So off
we-
by about 50 million?
Yeah, yeah. I'd have to look for the exact numbers, but it's at least that.
Okay.
It's hard to remember every single number.
Oh, come on.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Well, Mayor, is
Yes.
it best to ask questions now or when he comes back, or do we have a preference?
I think I would ask the questions right now, then we'll open it up for
Well,
public
this is
hearing.
more of a general and mainly for the public, and, because I've been asked this a few times. So, process for each department, as far as accountability with expenditures. I realize they cannot go over their budget. How throughout the fiscal year are we tracking that? Are the directors, or they have a designated person in every department, which could be different as far as?
It's a very good question. What we started last year, and in fact, I kicked it off again today, we have quarterly, for lack of a better term, I'll borrow something from a former world, a quarterly business review where we take the financial statements and we meet with the directors and the accounting personnel in each department and go over their finances at least 4 times a year and look specifically at what they're spending, their trend on spending, significant variances, where they're heading, and then we identify if anything unusual sticks out that we need to address. So today we started off with.
I'm sorry. Explain who the "we" is.
It was finance primarily. The mayor is always invited. When she can come, she attends, and she tries to attend as much as she can. This is very important to her. Then it would be 4 or 5 finance personnel, the directors and the department heads responsible for budgets in the department. So,
And when you're speaking to them, do you actually have a readout where they can see where they are and what their balance is, et cetera?
we have a financial statement we put together. The intent is for the owners of the budgets to share their finances with finance, to tell us what's in their numbers. I can look and I can see, but I want the owners of their budgets to go into the numbers on a frequent basis and understand their trends and be able to express what's going on within their finances to finance the mayor, because they're the ones that control it. If a department head or a director does not understand what's in their budget, then we have some work to do, because they can't spend to a budget or they can't control their expenses that they don't know what their budget is and how it applies to their actuals.
And could I make one more comment?
You
to
betcha.
that? So one thing I'm really excited about, that we've really wanted to do for the last couple of years but could not because of our Tyler, really because of the challenges we were facing with our Tyler system. But Doug's implementing a process looking at all expenditures, all P-card expenditures, watching trends. We are going to be implementing more consolidated purchasing so that we get the best values. And I am thrilled that he's doing this. It's a heavy lift.
Yeah.
The other thing that council mentioned during our workshop was that you wanted some accountability on travel. So we've had a couple of meetings on that. We have an online portal that IT is working on for submittal of the travel requests. It'll go before a position control team. And so we're actually working on that. And so I'm excited about the controls that we've really wanted to get in place. We haven't been able to at the granular level, but we've been very accountable to budgets, and we've been under budget, and we've talked about budget. We're going to the next level, which I feel very good about.
Thanks.
In accountability.
So this is one of my crazy questions. So do you feel like our wonderful directors, and I mean that, they have the perception that they do not need to spend all their budget monies to receive that type of budget the following fiscal year?
I think by and large, that is the overall intent, yes.
Government has that general outlook to the public.
One of the things that, since the day I walked in the door, one of the things I've told people is, let me back up. If the department heads fear that the environment is spend it or somebody's going to take it away, then a lot of people will try and spend the money behind the scenes and not tell you. But if I go to them in open and transparency and say, let's understand your actuals, what your needs are, don't spend it if you don't need it. If you need it, come to me, let's find a way to get you the money you need. And I go through the details with them, and they understand I'm not some evil person in the back with a hammer trying to beat their budget up, that they spend more conscientiously because they know that when they need something and come to me, we can find a way within the budgetary structure to meet that. But they
And
don't
Doug-
spend frivolously at the end.
They don't. We've worked on that since I've been in. We've had these
Thank you.
discussions every year
Yeah.
before the year end about what budget capacity is left, what it needs to be spent on, what is needed. But I will say, because Doug came from the private sector, I came from the private sector, I don't have any tolerance for the mentality, I think that you were referencing, if it's that government use it or, lose
Use it
it.
or
So
lose
you,
it.
right, so you go out and spend it. That is not okay. And that's not the culture that we've established in the city. We have a different culture than that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Because, and why I say that, and I guess it's because a long time ago, and you don't need to hear this, but I'll say it anyway. 1978, I was directing the Canyon County Juvenile Probation. So I won't give any names, but a judge in 1978 came to me a month before the budget was up and says, you have a bunch of money you have not spent.
Spend
You
it.
want to see that type of figure next year, you better hurry up and get it spent.
Yeah. That's not how we work.
That's
But-
the use it or lose it
But
mentality.
at the same time, we're not going out and saying, spend your money. We're saying,
I understand, and like I said, you didn't hear. One other question, and you know my little pet peeve. So we did okay in the budget, for transportation. I did read a wonderful, something in the paper, I think maybe Amy sent it out, that we are receiving $5 million, correct?
Raise grant, yes.
Okay,
It's
for the
Napa.
north side of
Yes.
Napa, which I think
Yes.
is just wonderful. I see where VRT is getting 8.6 million. And so, so in our discussion, when we previously okayed this budget, not officially, but approved as far as how to move ahead, with this 380 or whatever $1,000, but it was not put in VRT's name.
it's, I believe it's mass transit or public
Okay,
transit is what the.
so my main, I guess I would like to know, I realize there's probably some specific designation how VRT uses that 8.6 million. But my first question is if they continue with our safety, if they're going to need that kind of money. And number two, I would like for it, once we do decide how we're going to transport our people, that we just don't automatically just decide on VRT without that coming before the council.
I'll let the mayor bring that forward. I think that the challenge I think we have is beyond the finance. I have a budget that we've built and you've approved. Anything that goes beyond that budget, I think, requires council approval. And since we've labeled it mass transit, that gives you both the discretion and the limitation. It doesn't necessarily mean BRT, but if not BRT, what? And that's probably more of your decision.
And that's the question, and I don't know
Yeah.
who's going to research that, if that needs to be us or whatever the case is, but I just want to make sure that's brought before council before that money is designated to whatever entity.
So,
Yeah.
Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot, but I really appreciate Mark's presence. He's the staff member that is dedicated to working with the VRT staff. I really appreciate Mark's expertise and also fiscal stewardship, but the reality of how we function. So he's the one that's been meeting with the VRT staff. And so would you like to make any comments? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No, that's fine. Mayor and members of the city council, I have been talking to VRT since we had the workshop. There was some specific, Nampa-specific data that council member that you had asked for. I believe we got to the point where we have now received that data. I put together a summary sheet.
Great.
I'll be talking with you, Mayor, regarding some of those results, and then we can have further discussions on that.
And mayor, and so on. I'm not saying I would not vote for that, but that would be the aspect that I would, the data I would want to see and so on. And if there's any other alternative beside that, a competitive alternative, I would want to know that also.
Yes, sir.
That, I'm, there again, as I always say, me personally, I'm not speaking for anyone else here.
Understood.
I would say, and I understand your questions, but anything, if we were to even consider anything outside of VRT, it would take months to go there because of the RFP process and the research and to go there. And so I think that we're going to have the capacity to continue. Otherwise, we would lose all public transportation in the city. And so I think that we need to have a meeting regarding this. And I don't know how the other council members feel, but I think we're going to have a discussion because we need to be, VRT probably needs to know where we are and our commitment to funding transportation for our local citizens. So this is the 2023 budget as of October 1. So maybe, Mark, we could do a workshop on the September 21st. We've got a couple of other things, the workshop.
I would appreciate that.
So if you could just make note of that, will be an agenda item on September 21st, that we'll have a workshop with council.
And currently,
And just talk about what
okay.
you've researched.
And Mayor, currently, we've not okayed more than what we approved in our previous discussion as a council, which was 300. I mean, the request was higher than that.
What
It
we-
was, but we have, VRT has since come down to that
Okay, and Mark, if eventually you can
380.
speak to this, how this 8.6 million, maybe I realize I read a little bit on that, but if that has any effect as far as in Nampa and how that's going to be used.
And I would say, because this is a public hearing, when we're ready to open it, Kelly may be able to speak to that and answer that question as part of the public hearing. So, Mark, thank you.
Mayor Kling, I have one more for
Yes,
Doug,
okay.
though, if you don't mind.
For Doug, okay.
Doug, I'm going to go back to the bank fees that you and I talked about earlier.
Sure.
Okay. That it increased to $119,900. We don't know what the total number is yet, right? As far as all the transactions, all the money that the Nampa uses.
Every instance of the city where there's a development services, golf, even the police and fire department, they can collect money and incur a fee. So
Right.
I've got to gather that from all the sources.
Okay, because I don't know what that number is.
The 119,000 is just the increase in merchant fees. And what I put it in there for is because we're seeing a shift in purchasing demographics where people, rather than writing checks, are using online more.
Right.
That translates into more costs, not an increase in the rate per se, but the volume. And that's what that 119,000 represents, is a volume increase.
So we, the city, are not paying 119,000, or are we?
Yeah, we are.
Oh, we are because of the
Because,
administrative-
which is exactly why we wanted to push it back on the earlier, to get that off of the city's books.
Okay, all right, thank you, that's what I wanted to find out.
Are there any other questions for Doug? Okay. Doug, thank you. So this is a public hearing, and this is an opportunity for anyone that would like to testify. Did we have anyone signed up to testify?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. I know we have a couple interested citizens here, and so I guess my question would be, do we have anyone that would like to testify? Kelly? Yes, come on up, and thank you. Go ahead and share your name and address and your role, and thank you for providing clarity.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm Kelly Beatysheim, Executive Director of Valley Regional Transit, 700 Northeast 2nd Street in Meridian. So, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Bruner, the question that you had about the $8 million federal funds that were awarded to Valley Regional Transit, that was the RAISE program, and it is a specific competitive grant program. We applied for the State Street corridor, so all of those funds are dedicated to capital infrastructure, sidewalks, and the transit infrastructure for the State Street corridor. We have our funding partners include the City of Boise, Capital City Development Corporation, Ada County Highway District, and Idaho Transportation Department. So they're all providing the local match. We've been working in collaboration with them on the State Street corridor for several years, and that project is the culmination of that collaboration.
Kelly, do you mind sharing, I'm going to catch you just off the top of your head. Can you tell me how much Boise funds VRT generally?
Yeah, they actually have a memorandum of understanding where they fund 5% of their property tax, and I believe it's about 8.7 million this year.
Is a commitment from the city of Boise to fund public transportation.
Yeah.
Thank you. It puts it in perspective. So, thank you. Okay, is there anyone here? Is there anyone online? Do we have anyone online? No? Okay. Is there anyone here that would like to testify on the budget this year? Hubert, do you have any? You've waited a long time tonight. I don't mean to call you out, but I just did, so. I just am curious if you have any comments, and you would be welcome to come forward and share any comments you might have. But you would have to come forward and state your name and address.
You thought you were going to get away without saying anything, didn't you?
Thank you, Hubert.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name's Hubert Osborne. My wife and I reside at 4199 East Switzer Way here in Nampa. I think my comments, I sent an email out over a month ago. And I really haven't changed from what those comments were. Some people on the council bent over and took over a 2% increase when they had asked the rest of you to hold the line, but 2.52%, I guess I can live with. So thank you.
Thank you, Hubert. I always value what you have to say, so thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to comment? Okay, seeing none. Actually, we can ask Doug questions after we close public hearing. So I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, what is the will of the council?
Mayor Kling?
Yes.
I just want to thank Doug. Thank you for what all you do. I asked Doug here a month ago, how do you sleep? And he goes, I don't. And your staff.
Not during budget time.
I mean, I'll tell you what, this is awesome. We've nickel-dimed this budget as much as we can, and we come out ahead. I just want to say thank you publicly. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's worth it to do a good job.
I fully agree with you.
Yeah,
So I
thank
tell him
you.
he's done a great job, and I appreciate his efforts, and I appreciate the efforts that we just talked about in the stewardship.
Yes.
And that's a lot of work.
That's the
But-
next step really is tightening down, not being draconian or dramatic, but making sure that we're spending the money as wisely as we possibly can, because it's a limited resource.
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
and I'll say the same thing. As far as your accessibility has been exemplary, as far as being able to reach out to you and ask you questions about what's happening in the county and such.
trying.
By comparison, we're truly blessed here in Nampa to have such a refined fiscal, responsible budget that we're, working with.
I appreciate and I encourage any of the city councilors at any time to reach out. I think it's a valuable connection that I have with you, and I treasure it.
Mayor, I'll add just Doug, of course, his team, but all our directors. I don't know of any director that is not within 24 hours. If I ask a question, I don't ask near as many as this guy does. But within 24 hours, these gentlemen over here, Patrick, Daniel, I don't care. Tom's not here. Mark hasn't had to put up with me too much. Probably he will.
You will.
More, but anyway, just always get it quick. And I've always appreciated, I was taught that long ago. It doesn't mean I always accomplish it. But if somebody, a citizen or whatever, gets personally asked a question, or someone asks you at work or whatever the case, within 24 hours, they should have some type of response. Whether it's just, I don't have an answer, but I'll get back to you, such and such. So these folks do that. And I think that's just their own integrity and their own work ethic and public relations. So very appreciative of all our staff, directors, et cetera.
Thank you. We have a good team. So what is the will of the council? Is there a motion?
President makes that one.
Mayor, I'll make the motion to adopt the fiscal year 2023 budget as presented to us in our packet this evening.
Second?
And I will say, as we move to roll call, we're going to do one more vote, and after the reading of ordinance, but we're going to go ahead and do this one, and then we're going to move to reading of ordinance. So any further discussion?
Mayor, I just have a question. So I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to vote, because most of it I agree with, but there's things that I don't. I didn't vote for the increase, and I didn't vote for the pay raise. Not that I don't think our city employees deserve it. I just think that on a merit system, it's better. So if I don't approve of everything in here, how does that work?
You either just decide, because it's either a yes or no. Unfortunately, I don't think there's an option to take it apart. So it just, puts you in kind of a difficult place of just taking it
As a whole?
as a whole, right? So with that, you're welcome to state that, which you just did, to state, you know what, these are probably areas that I didn't, but I will support it in general if you choose to. Or if you choose not to, you're not because of that. But whichever way you go, you've stated, which is good, how you felt about those particular items.
Okay, thanks.
If that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So we've had a motion and a second. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
There are portions of this budget that I would like to change, but for the betterment of this community and betterment of our city, I'm going to vote yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Chingula.
Same thing, there's portions here that I don't, but I agree and I will vote yes.
Bauer. Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
So then we do have an action item, and this is going to be the first reading of ordinance adopting the 2023 budget, and is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
So move.
You have to read it first.
Oh, you have to read it? Oh, it's not-
Details.
I'm sorry. It wasn't even 9 o'clock. My mistake. That should have never been made until after 9 o'clock. Okay.
An ordinance appropriating funds for a 12-month period from the first day of October 2022 to and inclusive of the 30th day of September 2023 to defray the expenses and liabilities of the city of Nampa for said fiscal year, specifying the objects and the purposes for which said appropriations is made, authorizing a levy of a sufficient tax upon the taxable property, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, directing the city clerk to file certified copies of this ordinance with the county commissioners and Idaho Secretary of State, and providing an effective date, referencing sources and uses of funds and appropriating monies, specifying a process for expenditure of funds, and establishing an effective date.
Mayor Kling,
Yes.
this satisfies the summary publication as well. So I'll make a motion to pass the ordinance as read under suspension of rules. But there's no summary. Is there a summary publication?
Should there have been a summary of publication? Is that needed on a budget?
That's what I asked Joe, and he said you would give clarity.
I don't,
The summary of publication, is that a requirement as far as with this ordinance, or just suspension of rules? There will be. Okay, so nothing needs to be said in that regard. Okay, so
okay. So will we meet our deadline in that there isn't a summary of publication already provided on the ordinance? Because we do have a deadline to approve the budget and to submit it.
But what is a summary? We have the resolution which summarizes the budget, and we have the ordinance, and that's been published multiple times, so I don't know exactly what specifically you're asking for.
We'll publish this whole, it's not very long. It's not, so I don't think we need a summary.
just in the past, we've had that, and so I just want to make sure.
On some things we do, yeah. I don't know if we always do on budget.
Not for this?
Not for this.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to pass the ordinance as read under suspension of rules.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Councilman Haverfield, thank you for the question. I really appreciate it, and I think that's important, so thank you. That was good, just in case. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Chingula.
Yes.
Bauer. Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
So we are going to move back to new business. We have a few items yet to conclude, and this is going to be 6.4 on the agenda. This is an action item. This is to authorize the mayor to sign the state and local agreement for Sherman Elementary pedestrian improvements along Powerline Road for fiscal year 2022 local children pedestrian safety program. This is 100% funded through the local children pedestrian safety program funds.
Moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez. Chingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Bauer. Brunner.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
5 in favor, motion carries.
Item 6.5 is an action item to authorize the mayor to sign a letter of commitment and authorize the Public Works Department to finalize the submission of a planning application to the Bridge Investment Program. This was reviewed and approved by legal.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez. Jingula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Bauer. Reynolds.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
5 in favor, motion carries.
Item 6.6 is an action item. This is to authorize the mayor to sign the resolution and the state and local agreement for the pedestrian safety at signalized intersections for the road safety audit, project key number 23293. This was approved in the 22 budget and approved by legal.
So move.
Are there two motions here or just the one?
It's just the one.
Okay. I'll second the motion.
Okay, is there discussion, questions? Roll call.
Rodriguez. Jingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Bauer. Haverfield.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
5 in favor, motion carries.
6.7 on the agenda is an action item, and this is to authorize the mayor to sign the resolution and the Midland Boulevard Union Pacific Railroad RRX State and Local Agreement Amendment, and to authorize the mayor to sign the resolution and the, boy, this is confusing, Daniel, I'll probably have you come up, and we did talk about this, and the Midland Boulevard Union Pacific Railroad State and Local Agreement to terminate. But do you mind just quickly telling us the why behind this?
So, Mayor, we received some project funds from the state to design a median at the railroad crossing at Midland Boulevard north of Caldwell Boulevard, and the railroad crossing there because of a fairly serious accident that happened there a number of years ago. We did the design. There were access concerns that the median created for adjacent property owners. And so in the end, between the state and staff, we determined that we were not going to move forward with that. In the original state-local agreement, there's a provision that if the project isn't completed, the city has to pay the state back for the administrative funds that the state has expended. In our conversations with them, they agreed for the amount, it's $3,000 some odd dollars, that they didn't feel that that was necessary. So the amendment to the agreement removes that repayment clause, and then the termination agreement terminates the agreement, and the project is moot.
Thank you for that. I appreciate you explaining it. I couldn't. Okay, so would there be a motion to approve the signing of the resolution and this for both of them?
I'll make the motion for both items. Sign the resolution and authorize you to sign the resolution. So they're both.
Is there a
motion.
second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Bauer. Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 6.8 is an action item, and this is to authorize the mayor to sign the TDS easement agreement for the node cabinet to be located at Skyview Park, and to authorize staff to collect a one-time lease fee of $2,048 for the 256 square foot easement.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions, or is there discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Bauer. Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 6.9 is an action item, and this is to award the bid and authorize the mayor to sign the contract for the annual irrigation pipeline replacement Phase 2 project with Granite Excavation in the amount of $485,315. This was approved in the FY22 budget.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Bauer. Brunner.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
And these last two action items are why we have two staff members waiting here in the audience tonight. So item 610 is an action item. This is the police department is requesting approval to sole source the purchase of a replacement trailer for the Nampa Police Regional Bomb Unit.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
A question, who gets this, Doug or?
Brad?
Or Brad?
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You need to wake him up first.
Which one?
Oh.
So what are we doing with the old one? We're mothballs or some other municipality like Portland want it?
It's really for Doug. I think it's kind of a both question. I think there's an intent to either repurpose or to liquidate it. It does still have value, it just really doesn't have value for the unit. We've overused it.
That was a question that I brought to them. What do we do with this unit?
Yeah, so I'm not understanding an answer, whether we're gonna liquidate it or,
Yeah, there's a strong potential it can be reused within the city. And if not, then it would just be probably taken to auction.
Which does come in a consent agenda item for disposal of property. It'll come before city council
okay.
if we do dispose
Do
of
we
it.
have any idea what value, is there any appraised value on this unit?
I would suggest you keep that and use it.
Agreed.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
There's more to the police.
the most
than that.
likely scenario.
We can park it at Councilman Rodriguez's place.
Put my lawnmower back. My golf.
Okay.
Yes, Councilman Haverfield?
So we're able to get this without sales tax, it looks like.
Yes.
And processing fee for a credit card, do you plan on putting it on a credit card?
I think we could probably do a purchase order.
Okay. So I was just wondering why the 3% credit card fee was on there, but
Oh, was it on there?
yeah.
I think
Well,
Doug
we
did
will be
that.
careful that we don't do that. Right,
We,
so-
I think it's just included as a alternate. So if we decide to put it on a P card, it costs us 3%, but
Is it going to be your personal card that they'll put it on?
no.
You just gave Doug a heart attack.
I think a PO would.
Yeah, pretty much.
I kept one of the Nampa Fire cards.
And this is a unit that'll be built for us, or is it already pre-existing?
No, they'll build it to our specifications and needs. It's about a 6-month process to get the vehicle completed.
I'm looking at it right now. Thank you so much.
Mayor Kling.
Which is why they brought it forward now, because they want to begin the process because of the time it takes to build it.
Yeah.
So,
I knew that. I just wanted to have it on record for Dale Reynolds to know.
Well, and I guess I thought I heard another question, but I have a question for you, Mayor. When we originally submitted this, we were looking to just get permission to move forward early at Mayor's request. We decided to wait till after the public hearing. So now that you've approved the budget, we'd like to proceed with the order, but we didn't really prepare anything. And I don't know if we need anything else. We have the quote in here. I guess I don't know procedurally if that's a thing.
well, this particular action item is requesting approval to sole source the unit, sole source the purchase. So then with that, could that be considered authorization to move forward with the purchase?
Madam Mayor, you'll have, after this approval, if it's a budgeted item, that you've got budgeted funds appropriated for that, then you can go ahead and complete the purchase based upon this approval.
Okay, good
Mayor?
news. There you go. Yes.
Just, this has nothing to do with bomb disposal,
No,
because you got the little 8-ball thing that you pull around for that.
correct. Yeah, this is how we
I
get.
thought maybe you'd been dropping a bunch of things in there just to practice with it or something.
No, I mean, if it didn't have value, we might, but we do believe it has value. This is really just getting the equipment to the scene, so.
Mayor Kling. So Brad, actually what it is this is your command center for the bomb unit. That's what this is. Inside that van, there are cameras, there is electrical viewing, there's a robot. That's the center. So this is why it's so critical that we do this. Because when you have now, the tires are going to fall off, pretty much.
Well, we took a vehicle and redesigned it for a purpose that it was really never intended, which is kind of how we've grown this city. And I think we're in a really good spot now, and I'll throw out some kudos to Doug as well. Both Dougs really, because this guy's been fantastic on this. We look at mission critical needs, and we meet those needs with the appropriate equipment, whether that's a vehicle or whatever else. And we didn't used to work that way. The reason we have this trailer is because we did what we could to get by, and now we buy things that are mission critical, and it's it's a way better deal for the citizens, I think, in the long haul. So,
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah.
Roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Jingula,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Bauer, Rodriguez,
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
And our last action item for the evening is item 611 under new business. This is an action item, and it's direct the Fleet Services Division to proceed with a letter of intent to purchase to various vendors and manufacturers for all of the authorized FY23 vehicles and equipment for the total estimated amount of $4,528,000 on October 1.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to authorize you to go ahead and move forward. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Jingula,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Bauer, Rodriguez,
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
So Deb, I was going to say, what would you like to share? Since we
I just wanted to
moved
follow
forward?
up on Councilor Bruner's comment earlier about budgetary expenditures. I'm a division head that manages a multi-million-dollar budget every year, and with the mayor's leadership and Tom Points and Doug Racine, I have never once felt that if I didn't exhaust my prior budget, I would not get what I needed. I just don't think that's a culture that exists here in this city. Just I want to make a comment on that.
And it's nice that Nampa seems to have a distinction of being different than most municipalities, and this is another area that we can be proud of.
I agree.
But Counselor, that's as much due to the fact that we have department heads and directors that they have a good compass about where to spend. And it's not a battle between us, it's just figuring out the best way to get to the right place.
And Doug, thanks for your sense of urgency in getting this early so they get the proper pricing. I mean, 4 million, I dropped my job at 4.5 million, but still, I'm sure it would have been a lot more if you didn't have that sense of urgency. Thanks.
It's just a reminder that I believe we're going to be saving $900-some thousand through our lease, how we're changing. We went into a lease program. Right now, we're doing a buyout, and there's going to be tremendous savings for that, even though there's upfront capital. And then when we're buying leases when they expire, it's saving the city money because then we put them into our 10-year fleet. The other thing, you know what? There are times that we want to extend that 10 years. But what I realize is some cities have said, well, like police cars, well, we can't use impact fees for police cars because you have to keep them for 10 years. And we're like, absolutely, you have to keep them for 10 years. And we do keep them for 10 years, but many don't. So I tell you, Doug, you're to be commended. You've done a phenomenal job with our fleet division. Thank you so much for your work. Yeah. And good job, Brad, too. Yeah. With that, I would stand for a motion to adjourn.